Good evening, good evening, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night to whatever part of the world you are located. Thank you all so much for tuning in. It's been about a week since we've been live. Boss Lady been having a lot going on over here. So the gang said, hey, when we going live? So we going live tonight and we going to be in here for a few hours, y'all. Okay? So hope everybody enjoying y'all holidays. Peace, love, and blessings to you all. I'm on the back end munching on my little leftover ribs. Shout out to everybody in the comment section. Let me slide on over here. All right. Shout out to Mr. Bass. Shout out to Tbttv. Peace, love, and blessings, y'all. Okay. Boom. Get up out of there. Okay, so peace, love, and blessings to everyone. So I got Tbttv and Mr. Bass up in here. Tbttv in the comment section. Lynn is going to be a little late. So Lynn going to come up tonight and chop it up with us. Like I said, y'all, it's been a week because Boss Lady been busy. But, hey, KC, blessings, babe. Welcome back, love. Welcome back. I know it's been a minute, but y'all, I've been having something going on and here, there, and whatever else. But it's well, we back. Yeah, we going to start the new year, as they call it. We going to start, I will start doing better. So I'm going to be up all night. I'm energized. So I hope y'all ready. I got to put some links together. Mr. Bass got one for y'all at the end. That's going to open a lot of y'all's eyes to, the holidays that y'all celebrate and all of that there. But, anywho, shout out to Miss KC. Blessings, love. Welcome back. So, all righty, y'all. Let me bring Mr. Bass up. Mr. Bass.
Good evening. Good evening. How you doing this evening?
Munching.
I know. I'm over here. With the music went off. I'm like, where's she at? I reckon I better come up. And then there you is.
I was already here waiting for the music to go off, and when it went off, I just had something in my mouth, and then you popped up.
Alrighty, I hope it's good.
Oh yeah, it's magnificent.
Yep. Good evening, everybody. Peace and blessings to you. Thank you for joining us tonight. We're honored by your presence. Please like, subscribe, comment, and hit the bell icon so that you can get notifications when we go live.
How was your day, Mr. Bass?
It's been good. I trying to got a lot of things out of the way. I got a gig tomorrow, so that all I have to do tomorrow is get me ready. All of my equipment is already in the van, ready to go, and tomorrow go through my routine so that I don't cramp up tomorrow night.
So you got it all squared away?
Yes, indeed. Yes. Yep. So I'm just not sure if it's a private party or if it's the regular restaurant hours. I got to find that out because I want to invite some people.
Oh, okay. That's what's up. I hope you enjoy yourself on tomorrow.
Well, I always do with this particular group because the majority of the songs they do are original songs, so it gives me a lot of room to play.
Okay. Much love, McMahon. Blessings, baby. Blessings. Yeah, so I'm off tomorrow. And I'm gonna get me a little rest. and then do some little chores around the house. I'm changing out my bathroom downstairs, my powder room. So
All right.
yeah, so that what I be doing on tomorrow. Resting. Give me some rest, baby. I ain't gonna do too much, so.
Yeah, I'll be doing some cleaning up in my room. You know how some men be.
In your man cave or your bedroom.
uh, in uh in my TV room.
Okay. Man cave. Man cave. Man cave. Yeah, so I don't have much to do, you know. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have much to do, so.
Well, Sunday.
Oh, I wish I can taste these collard greens. Good God, oh my day. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm just smacking. But these some good old greens. Hey, kiss the fool. These greens is off the chain, Mr. Bay. Mm-mm.
I hear you.
Okay, y'all. So we about to get this party started, baby. Like I said, we ain't been live in a week, so I'm sure everybody is got a lot of energy going on. We ain't been live in a week, so everybody should be ready tonight. Cause I know I am. Boy, I got some energy. D green so good, y'all. I'm sorry, but baby, honey. You ready, Mr. Bass?
I'm ready.
All right, now we about to get this show started, family. We got some links coming up, and they're very interesting, and we gonna chop it up. Lillian is gonna come up tonight. She's gonna come up tonight. She's just a little busy right now, but when she come in, she's coming up so we can, do some talking. You know, go back to how we used to do this time. All right, Mr. Bass, you can go ahead on and drop the link, baby, and I'm finna chew on mute. What you laughing at, kids? These greens
and the World Health Organization have announced when we will see the next pandemic, and they have a date for us. So get this on your calendar. Prepare, plan your trips around this next pandemic right now. We'll have more on that in a second and the dates. But you'll remember Bill Gates and the World Health Organization previously held what was known as the 2001 Event 201. And it was about the Event 201 exercise. It was a simulation involving a coordinated global response to a coronavirus that they held in a simulation just months before COVID-19 was declared a global pandemic. So they're pretty good at predicting this stuff. I don't know how they pull this off.
Fauci, remember Fauci told Trump in 2017, not that there could be, not that there might be, but there would be a pandemic during his presidency.
Yes.
Yeah, and Obama ran exercises for it during his pregnancy.
During his pregnancy.
During his presidency, too.
At the womb factory.
So they've just gotten together and they're doing it again now. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, along with Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security and the World Health Organization. I wish I was making this up, but this is not a conspiracy theory. They did this. And they just conducted their next pandemic tabletop exercise in Belgium. It's called the Catastrophic Contagion. Hey, honey, where are you going this weekend? I'm going to Belgium. I got a conference. Oh, yeah. What's it about? It's called the Catastrophic Contagion event. Oh, what are you guys going to be doing? Oh, we're just planning the next pandemic. Just getting everything ready. Getting everything ready, locked up, and the new virus and vaccines. We'll have vaccines ready to go because that's how we do this. We plan it, and then we, of course, have the vaccines ready to go. So this is the video that Bill Gates put together along with the team, complete with simulated news reports like this. This is really what they're preparing for us. This video is called Get Ready. Watch. Catastrophic contagion, a global challenge.
Officials
Breaking
in
news.
2 Latin American countries alerted the WHO of several outbreaks of a new infectious disease that's mysteriously appearing across the region. Severe epidemic virus respiratory syndrome 2025.
Oh, so that's the name. Just write this down. That'll be the name of it, okay? It's going to
Sears.
Sears. It's going to be called the Severe Epidemic Enterovirus Respiratory Syndrome, and 2025 is when we'll see it, okay? Now, it says at the bottom this is a fictional scenario, but come on.
Over the past 6 weeks alone, there have been 500 confirmed or suspected cases reported. The virus could cause a severe pandemic if early containment and mitigation efforts are not successful.
The pandemic in this type of situation and trend would be a risk for the global health security.
Pandemics are inherently political, financial, and so much broader.
We have not spoken on the leadership in country. And I think that we need to be also very careful. We cannot decide a lot of things without the leaders be involved and agree on that.
Oh, really? That's an interesting point that she's making. Oh, instead of unelected globalists making decisions, she's saying, wait a minute, we need to have our leaders involved in this discussion.
Wait, so the white guy was the dissenter,
Right.
like the one we're supposed to say, oh yeah, he's a naysayer, we don't agree with him, and then
Right.
she shuts him down.
She shuts him down.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, go ahead.
There is no substitute for national leadership.
It's important to support the local response or the national response.
Training those that are in these areas first, enabling them with the tools, protecting them, and if needs be, regional solidarity first. At this stage, communication is key, and communication should include not just scientists with data, but also social, religious, and political leaders.
Trust. This is an essential issue. And trust was broken among countries, between populations and healthcare systems, between healthcare systems and governments.
I'm very sorry to say that in 2025, we need to strengthen the health system.
WHO needs to be a voice for the voiceless.
No one is safe until all of us are safe.
As of today, there have been an estimated 1 billion cases worldwide, with more than 20 million deaths, including nearly 15 million children. Countless millions are alive, but left with paralysis or brain damage.
Oh, okay. So that's how it'll. So I'm sorry. You hear those numbers? 1 billion people. Okay. Millions of children. And then those who are left will have brain damage and paralysis. So that's what we'll have. That's how this is going to unfold.
The most successful countries are those which invested in preparedness and trained for this moment years in advance. This included having full-time pandemic preparedness and response teams, which conducted detailed operational planning and routinely tested those plans through exercises and drills.
Okay. I should also point out, I didn't recognize her at first. This is Jean Reserve. She used to be a CNN anchor. She used to be a CNN reporter.
Did she?
Yeah. So now, I mean, just goes to show you like the cozy. I didn't recognize her at first. Her hair is, she's older, gray, and I didn't recognize her. But she was a CNN anchor reporter. And this goes to show you the coziness between the mainstream media and the likes of like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and the World Health Organization to add credibility to a message that they're trying to get out. Right?
Yes, but we've been freelance journalists before too, and you realize that she's just taking a contract job.
Okay.
We shouldn't begrudge someone taking a paying job. So
all right.
And I saw this circulating online really quick. And I found it on YouTube and I showed Jennifer because I was like, this is like crazy that this was before COVID hit that they were playing this. And now you can't find it on YouTube. And I watched it on YouTube. So after it started to gain traction, it was scrubbed from YouTube. And now I believe you can only find it on Rumble.
This video? Okay. You said this was before COVID because this just came out.
Oh, this is the new one? Okay. So you've not seen the old one then?
Oh, I saw.
They did this.
I never saw the old one.
Okay.
No. This is the new
I'll
one that
find
they
that and
just
show
released.
you that because because they did the exact same thing before COVID, and it was basically this exact same thing. They laid out that it was coming. They had news people. They had the table of people talking about it. It's like basically the exact same thing.
Yeah, I couldn't find that video. I mean, I showed you the event 201, but no, this is the new one that just came out. This is the brand new one that they just did in Belgium for the 2025, the new pandemic.
The toll might have been much less.
There it is, catastrophic contagion from October 2022, and now 2025. So that's what it'll be. It'll be the Sears infection. The Sears virus.
Well, they said that was an enterovirus. They said that was an enterovirus, which is a that was polio was an enterovirus.
Oh, good.
So
and COVID was not.
Interesting.
No,
norovirus. COVID was a corona.
Okay. That's a type of.
So yeah, the same people behind Event 201 that David was just talking about from a few years ago took place almost 3 years ago to the day. By the way, they completed their new one now, and they say that this is going to originate in Brazil, 2025, and get ready. So, in addition to Bill Gates, the 10 current and former health ministers and senior public health officials from Senegal, Rwanda, Nigeria, Angola, Liberia, Singapore, India, Germany participated in this simulation. They had pre-recorded news broadcasts, as you saw, and then they had the virus simulation, and they tested the rates of spread and how this would affect children and sweep across the globe, and how they would go into lockdowns and what they would do, and preparing, of course, for vaccines as well, making sure that those are lined up perfectly with this. See, this is the beauty of what these guys do, right? They know it's coming, so then they just develop the vaccines that they can sell to us, and they have them ready to go right there.
Yes, but you can see there's a clear narrative of naysayer guy, saying, well, these pandemics are political. We're not going to hand over power. Absolutely not. And then the sort of cooler heads in the room prevail, like, no, we need a global response. We need centralized power. No, we absolutely. No, you unreasonable guy. They played him as a caricature.
Right.
And then they showed other people saying absolutely. And it's interesting that they have people who look like they're from African countries when the African Union has said, we do not want to participate in centralized power through the World Health Organization if there's a next pandemic. We absolutely will not be handing over power this way.
Yeah, that's
one thing that I said,
few African nations that stood up and actually voted that down. Go ahead, David.
Well, I was going to say, like I was saying from the very, very beginning, and we were talking about it on the show, that if there was actually a global pandemic, then these companies would have got together with world leaders and they would have created this vaccine and spread it to the world free of charge, because they are profitable enough. The government could have paid for it to do that. But when they made it so that they created basically 9 new billionaires and it was so profitable for them, that shows you the true motivation, that it was nothing about a pandemic.
Right.
Yes.
And this is the same thing. It's like,
yeah.
Go ahead.
Mrs. Mom in the chat is saying, do you see that they're saying targeting kids? Because that was the piece that I feel like that was missing from COVID, is that we realized that it was not particularly terrible on children. And so this is what it's like trying to show us that would be different, because if we got another COVID related disease, we might not all mobilize the same way we did the first time.
Right.
But if it's going to hit our kids. You don't just live with long COVID, you live brain dead.
Well, that's the polio thing that Philip's talking about, right?
Right.
That's
I was going to say, I wonder if that's why they chose an enterovirus, because they wanted to. It just wasn't scary enough. It's not scary unless it involves children.
Right. And then you make
that's why they
a
went that way.
polio vaccine, to your point earlier, as part of a routine, like.
Well, it is.
Now polio is now part of your routine shots. What I'm saying is, whatever new thing that they create would become part of your new inoculation schedule for children.
Yes.
So this 2007, they had a lockdown in place, we learned this week. Do some good digging here. We learned this morning, thanks to some good reporting by Will Jones, that the U.S. government had a plan in place for lockdown since 2007, to lock down and wait for a vaccine again. Since 2007. It's a pandemic plan produced by the National Infrastructure Advisory Council. It was hosted on the CISA website. It lays out banning any large number of gatherings, definitely closing schools, non-essential businesses, institute work from home policies, and quarantine exposed and not sick individuals. Quarantine those people too. The aim is simple and clear: to slow the spread and wait for the vaccine. And here's a quote from the plan. During a pandemic, the goal will be to slow the virus's transmission. Delaying the spread of the virus will provide more time for vaccine development while reducing the stress on an already burdened healthcare system. So that was in place. That's been in place. Thanks to Will Jones for uncovering that. So there you go. That's get ready, 2025 Brazil, and mark your calendars now. Make sure you plan your vacations accordingly.
Okay. I don't want to do that, but
I don't either. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.
All right, so Mr. Bass. Okay, so family, if you all are not aware, right, this is the same thing that happened in pertaining to the pandemic, right? So my thing is, if you all know what you know, they said that it's going to be coming out 2025, SARS or whatever they're supposed to be, which is a respiratory disease that they have created that's going to attack the kids. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something. They stated that it would come out in 2025. Do y'all not know that something was recently just released? I'm going to grab an article of it, but something was just released, and a lot of kids are being attacked in their respiratory right now. So they said 2025. So have they went ahead on and released it? However, they create these things, and they create these plagues, disease, and everything, and they already have a pathogen for it. They're just like the CV-19, whatever it's called, the pandemic. They created that because they already had the pathogen to it, okay? If you all would go to the website, whether you using Google or either DuckDuckGo, and Google who is the most famous doctor, they're going to tell you Bill Fauci. That's why, not Bill Fauci. Bill Gates. I apologize. They're going to say Bill Gates. So what it is he has his hand in it, and he's having these things created and all of this and all of that. They're sending it out and putting it amongst the people. It's already out. Absolutely, certainly, yeah, it is, and it is attacking the kids. It is attacking the children now. And it says it's attacking their respiratory and everything. So it's already out. So they said 2025, but they have already released it, y'all. So shout out to Sir Miguel. Okay, Mr. Bass, do you have anything to say?
The only thing I got to say about these people like Bill Gates and them, that I'll be glad when
demons,
one of these agencies clamp down on them and cut this foolishness out, trying to keep people living in fear.
Okay, I was just telling somebody when I went and grabbed a few groceries tonight for my son, right? I was telling somebody, and they was looking at me, and like this old lady was just looking at me, and she came over and she said, you know what, baby, you right. She said, I learned a lot during this time of lockdown, and things was going on, and nothing's being talked about now. She said, I'm paying very close attention. And she was like, the way that these prices are going, because I was saying something, I was actually talking to the stalker that was in the grocery store, and I was talking about the eggs. I was like, my God, a carton of eggs in all the grocery store, the cheapest store that there is almost $4 for a carton of eggs. And so I said, baby. I said, y'all better get ready. So we began to talk about the chickens and, stuff of that nature. And so she said she's not going to do it again. So I told her, I said, you know what? Anybody in their right mind, when they come with something else, they better not lock down. I said, because this time they come with the lockdown, guess what? That's when it's officially over. So you have to stand up to these entities, these dark forces, and let them know what you're not going to keep on doing, because they keep doing test runs. Every time they do a test run, they say, well, this, that. Everybody going in the house and doing according to what they say. Then get what? They're going to keep on handling you the way they want to handle you. You get what I'm saying? So if they come with another lockdown, y'all got to be crazy if y'all going to sit up here and let them keep doing whatever. Because if you let them do it this time, then get what? Whatever done, hey, you deserve whatever gonna be, but you deserve whatever. You don't keep on allowing these people to make you lay down. It's a game, it's a game of hunger. It's called the Hunger Games, okay? Mm-hmm. These elitists, these people that want to control the world, what they're doing is they want to be God, better than God himself, the creator, okay? They can never be.
Yeah, that's exactly what's going on with them. They have flipped so much, turned so many things upside down, but a lot of things are starting to surface now. The truth is starting to surface. People starting to wake up or become conscious of what's going on. And I don't think they're going to get away with another lockdown.
Yes, but it's really sad, like I said, there's only one. And at the end of the day, every knee shall bow and tongue confess that he is the Lord our God. See, time's up. It ain't no more time running out. Time is up. So that old devil, that old serpent, that old thing called Satan, whatever y'all want to call him, time's up. So he's doing any and everything that he can by any means to take as many as he can. So that's why we have to stay prayed up and stop laying down, y'all. See, we the most forgivingest people on this. Listen, we the most forgivingest people on this earth. Listen here, stop laying down. Listen here. I was raised and my granny told me, stand for something or you'll fall for anything. And from the looks of it, these years and continuing, everybody keep falling for anything. If you all haven't noticed, Bill Gates has the periodic table in-house. There is one more element they are trying to find, then the real shit begin. Exactly, Sir Miguel. Exactly. Listen. Hey, it's about to get really real. It's about to get real out here, y'all. So, Mr. Bass, you can go ahead on with the next link while I do some communicating in the chat, in the comment section. So, do you want to comment on the Truth Be Told, or am I going to be commenting on it? I'm just curious. I'm asking.
Yeah, I know. I'll explain it to you later.
Okay, I got you. Go ahead.
And pumping tonight because the new lockdowns are coming. Forget COVID lockdowns. Those are so last year. Get ready for climate lockdowns. But, we'll probably have a mixture of both of them because they want you to stay healthy and get vaccinated, but they also don't want you to leave your house and they want you to give up your cars. So we've been warning you about these for months on this show. These unelected globalists are trying to put in a system in place for climate lockdowns in urban areas. Now, this is why they don't want you moving to the suburbs. It's convenient, isn't it? They really don't want you moving to the suburbs. And they don't want you to have a garden. They have to register your gardens. They don't want you buying those gas-guzzling cars. So they really want you in urban areas. And they want to take away your cars. They've said this publicly. And it's not a conspiracy theory. It's on their freaking website. And it's already happening. So if you've got friends that say, hey, Janice, you're a crazy nut for watching that Redacted and spewing these conspiracy theorists, just why don't you go to the World Economic Forum's website and hand it right to that guy's face and show them, here it is right here. And then why don't you also point out the cities where this is already happening? You could show them that. And then that person might say to you, Janice, okay, maybe you're not as crazy as I thought, but I'm going to go get some lunch now. Stop walking around and showing me websites. So it's not a conspiracy theory. It's written right out and published on their site. And it's already happening. We're going to show you the latest plan for this city planning in just a minute. But first, we got our first taste of these climate lockdowns already. And one that stood out to me particularly was this summer. It didn't get a lot of attention. And it was in France. Now, I don't know how many of you remember this, but I do. And there was a lot of interesting pieces about this because it was basically like, hey, these are the things you are allowed to do during a heat wave. And these are the things you're not allowed to do. You are allowed to go to this place, this place, this place, this place. But you are allowed to go over here because we've somehow designated that you're allowed to go. Here's the BBC story from that summer. Europe heat wave, outdoor events banned in parts of France. And I'll just read through some of the pieces of it. Here's a quote. Concerts and large public gatherings have been called off in and around the Gridiron department in Bordeaux. On Thursday, parts of France hit 40 degrees Celsius earlier in the year than ever before, with temperatures expected to peak on Saturday. Scientists say periods of intense heat are becoming more frequent and longer lasting as a result of global warming. So as an example of the media lies, the article claims, quote, temperatures could hit 39 degrees Celsius in Paris, and droughts have also raised the risk of wildfires, forecasters said. And a woman, I love that they quote this woman here, Jacqueline Bernard. I'm 86 years old. I was born here, but I think this is the worst heat wave I've ever seen, she says Jacqueline. Wow, that's some journalism. They found an 86-year-old woman and asked her, have you ever seen anything like this before? That's some great journalism right there. 86-year-old Jacqueline says that this is the worst heat wave I've ever seen. So an old lady's opinion is included in this news piece. Well, Jacqueline, I know you're older and God bless you. Do you remember 19 years ago in 2003 in France? Were you living there then? Because it was way worse 19 years ago. The heat wave in 2003, in fact, was actually hotter than this summer's heat wave. Back in 2003, heat wave that killed 11,000 people in France. It rose to 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, these things happen all sporadically. You're going to have a heat wave here, you're going to have a heat wave there. But there's a thing that we have now, thanks to fossil fuels, it's called air conditioning. And we're able to mitigate heat wave disasters. Now, most people don't die from heat, they die from cold. More people die from cold than ever do from heat. When it gets a little cold, you might think, well, it's pretty easy. I can flip on some heaters. There's a lot of people for whom don't have access to heat because we've taken it away from them. We've told them in third world countries now that, hey, you guys can't use coal. You guys can't use the very things that we used to industrialize. So we had our 100 years in Britain and the United States where it was fine for us to use coal to keep the lights on and to stay warm, but you're not allowed to. You have to skip right from using dung. You have to skip from that right to solar panels. Nothing in between. That's where we're at right now. That's what these globalists are doing to a lot of the people throughout Africa. So now this morning we got word that England is setting up new lockdown policies, new lockdown plans for climate change. And it's going to break cities in designated, it's going to basically break cities up into designated lockdown zones. Are you in one of these zones? You might be. The goal is to take away your car and force you to stay put. And if this sounds familiar, it's because it's right out of the World Economic Forum's playbook. It's called a 15-minute city. Here's the BBC to explain it.
The 15-minute city is a really simple concept in many ways. It's really just saying that every urban citizen should be able to meet their basic needs within a 15-minute walk or cycle ride from their house.
The concept of the 15-minute city was proposed by French Colombian scientist Carlos Moreno, and aspects of it are starting to be adopted in cities like Paris, Barcelona, and Bogota.
So it's already rolling out. And now here's the World Economic Forum in their own words on their website. This is the surprising stickiness of the 15-minute city. It says, in the World Economic Forum's own words, the rearrangement of cities is absolutely about climate change, reads the website. As climate change and global conflict cause shocks and even stresses at faster intervals and increasing severity, the 15-minute city will become even more critical. And the solution was the pandemic. They really say this right here on the website. The solution was the pandemic. The obvious yet incomplete answer is the pandemic with COVID-19 and its variants keeping home everyone or close to home than usual. The 15-minute city went from a nice to have to a rallying cry. So let me pull this up here on the screen. It looks like we might have some trouble with the video here, but let me show you on my side here. So the surprising stickiness of the 15-minute city. This is the World Economic Forum, and this is just published this year. So as we scroll through here, you can see, and look, here's the solution, right? Use your bikes, says the World Economic Forum. So here, look at this. The urbanism trend comes to 15-minute city framing of a walkable mixed-use urban development is a lot more than a fad. The historical roots of the 15-minute city are connected deeply with the current moment, one we will be living with for a long time. As climate change and global conflict cause shocks and stresses, faster intervals and increasing severity, the 15-minute city will become even more critical. So right there, as climate change and global conflict cause shocks and stresses, faster intervals and increasing severity, the 15-minute city will become even more critical. And then they even show you, so which implies all the necessary amenities within a short bike ride, short walk, or public transportation. We've already rolled this out in Paris, Seoul, and Bogota. And here's the big picture. See, they don't want you to live in suburban areas. They want you in urban areas. All of this is built around urban planning. So they want you in these environments that they can control. They can control the food flow and all of it right to your front door. So that's how this unfolds. And this arrangement is now being rolled out in England. So we just found out this is unbelievable. So it was already being voted upon, and it passed. So now in England, this is happening. In Oxfordshire, the council is to trial a climate lockdown starting in 2024. Oh, it's just going to be a trial? You know it's not. So here it was 18 hours ago. Oxfordshire County Council yesterday approved plans to lock residents into one of 6 zones to save the planet, they say, from global warming. The latest stage in the 15-minute city agenda is to place electronic gates on key roads in and out of the city, confining residents to their own neighborhoods in Oxfordshire.
Would those be solar-powered electric locks?
Probably. God knows. I mean, because we've now vilified hydrocarbons and fossil fuels. Like you can't, I just did a whole video this weekend on this whole BS argument. Where you only have 3% right now of our energy being produced by solar and wind, and all of it is backed up by natural gas. So when it's not sunny and it's not windy, what kicks on? We need all of these fossil fuels. And if you eliminate fossil fuels and hydrocarbons, petroleum specifically, you then cannot have anything that you like. Forget your computers, forget your screens, forget about 6,000 different things in our houses right now. Look around your room. Almost every item in your living room comes from some form of fossil fuel, from some sort of petroleum production. Eliminate it.
Well, and your food too, because it's got to be delivered via truck. So right, everything there's nothing in my house that I can look at and think that is not here because of fossil fuel.
But it's a doom. They're telling us it's coming. So we need to have the city lockdown. We need to have these climate lockdowns. They don't want you to have cars. So under the new scheme, listen to this, this is amazing. If residents want to leave their zone in Oxfordshire, they will need permission from the city council, who gets to decide who is worthy of freedom and who isn't. Look at Oxfordshire. I just want to take a drive. I want to take a drive in the countryside, and I want to go visit grandma who lives, 60 kilometers away. Screw you. Literally. You are not allowed
to be a letter written in calligraphy, or what? Is this letter? Is it a phone call? Can you send them an email?
I don't know. I mean, under the new scheme,
the process?
You have to basically go to the city council and get approval to leave the zone. You're only allowed to leave a certain number of days per year.
That's like, Mom, can I go outside? No, it's too hot outside. Oh man, play in your room.
I mean, like the heat wave thing. Aren't we adults enough to know? If it's so freaking hot, I'm not going to go see. You know what? I'm not going to go to the Yanni concert if it's so freaking hot. You know what I mean?
And if Yanni's playing in a building where there's AC, I should be able to get in my car with AC, drive to the building with AC, and have a perfectly fine evening without permission.
Exactly, because of fossil fuels, because of air conditioning, right? If there's a summer outdoor concert series and Mel Torme is playing, I can say, you know what, I'm skipping this one. I'm skipping from seeing the Velvet Fog because it's just too damn hot out. I'm an adult. I can make that decision.
And chances are they cancel the concert anyway. So you'd be like, you didn't need their permission because now you're not going to go because it's been canceled because it was the smart thing to do.
Yeah. You get Tony Bennett out there in 104 degrees, the guy's going to drop over dead. Like, Tony Bennett's going to cancel the concert. Like, we are adults.
Obviously,
we don't need government.
Tony Bennett.
That's true. I've seen
plays in Vegas. Now, come on.
I think he played his last concert recently, but anyway. So yeah, you're not allowed to you have to get approval to travel more than a certain number of designated times per year. Again, we talk about carbon footprint tracking. We talk about tracking everything you do. This is what it is. In order to gain this, every resident will have to register their car details with the city council, who will then track their movements via smart cameras around the city. This is the dream for these guys. Every resident will be required to register their car with the county council, who will then monitor how many times they leave their district. This sounds like Hunger Games, via a number plate recognition system. So they just voted on this, guys. Like, this is already happening. Now, I know it's a small...
like the aliens in District 9.
Right. Now, I know this sounds small, like this is one city. It doesn't matter. It starts this way.
Well, that's what they do. They do these little drops and like, let's test this in this small area where we know that, it's these feeble people. They're not really going to do much. Let's see how it flies. Let's get it organized and then it'll spread. And it's like, people are always like, oh, it's only starting there. I don't need to worry about it. It's not going to come to the big city. But that's when you need to worry, when you see it happening in these smaller areas.
Right. And someone in our Rumble chat, who was it, just said in Rumble, Save Rari says Agenda 21 in 1992. Yeah, mega cities, right? This is the idea. Mega cities, we will control your movements. We will have total control of it, and we will then be able to control your food production. We'll get the cars off the roads. We don't want you driving these cars at all anyway. And you will all own a bike, and you'll walk to wherever you need to walk. So this is madness. James Woodhoyson warned about us of this in Spiked in October. In late October, James writes, the madness of the 15-minute city. The green agenda is taking inspiration from the illiberal days of lockdown, he writes. To this end, Oxfordshire Council, which is run by the Labour and Liberal Democrats and the Green Party, wants to divide the city of Oxford into 6 15-minute districts. In these districts, it is said most household essentials will be accessible by a quarter of an hour walk or ride by bike. So residents will have no need for a car. On the surface, these 15-minute neighborhoods might sound pleasant and convenient, but there's a coercive edge. The council plans to cut car use and traffic congestion by placing strict rules on car journeys. Residents will have to register their cars with the city council, and they will be tracked to count their journeys through the key gateways in and out. It's a social credit scheme, James writes, that starts with your car and works like an anti-frequent flyer points. The less you drive, the less you travel, the better and higher your score. They don't want you visiting anything. They don't want you going anywhere. Under the new proposals, if any of Oxford's 150,000 residents drive outside of their designated district more than 100 days a year, he or she could be fined £70 each time that happens. It's fucking crazy, guys.
They should cordon off the grocery stores too, based on your social credit score, so that like, no, you've got a social credit score of 200 or less. This is the only aisle you can shop from. You're getting canned SpaghettiOs.
I know, and I know it sounds crazy.
If you want fresh meat,
yeah, no, you're right. You're only allowed a certain number of meat credits, guys. This is where this is going. This is not conspiratorial shit. This is they've written it out. They're executing on it. They've already run pilot programs that they're running in Paris, Bogota, Houston. Like, this is happening. And it's they paint it as like a dream. You don't need to go anywhere. You can just walk everywhere. And look, I like the idea of like urban, like walking in a city, but I also don't want to stay there forever. I'd like to go visit my mom who lives, a couple hours away. I want to go visit friends. I want to go upstate and visit. I want to maybe commute from work. I want to live in the city and commute outside of the city. What about the people that want to commute for work? Have that choice, have that liberty. No, sorry. Under this plan, you won't. And what about people who can't walk 15 minutes to the grocery store, who they just don't have the capacity?
I mean, I think you guys are, all a bunch of wimps. The Amish do it. The Amish live this way, I mean, they don't go further than unless they hire somebody to drive them to Pennsylvania to see their family. They stay within, how far a horse can travel. So
they want you to be Amish.
Such a big deal.
They want us to be Amish. That would be actually no, they don't, because they don't want us to farm.
No, actually, yeah, they don't. Yeah, they don't want you to farm,
and they don't want us
rainwater,
to have
stuff like that. Like,
yeah,
that's true.
Yeah, because they want to vaccinate you.
Become Amish. I just got to cut this off, and I'm Amish.
And get a horse and buggy. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time. This is going to get my adrenaline pumping tonight.
Yeah, y'all, very interesting, isn't it? But you know what, though, Mr. Bass? You remember when that guy there was running for president, right? And when he was running for president, we all tried to tell the people when he said he wasn't going to cut fossil fueling and this, that. We were like, yes, he is. When it goes according to the U.S., right? We was like, yes, he is. And a lot of people's like, no, he's not going to do it. He said he's not going to do it. That's the main objective. The main objective is to eliminate all of that. And also, we were watching a clip one night. You remember the clip we was watching one night, Mr. Bass? And the young lady had pretty much talked about her electric car, right? She said that her electric car was some kind of issues that she was having with the electric car. You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, so yeah, that's going to be it's going to be very intrigued.
Yeah, well, everything that he was just talking about, that 15-minute city, that stuff has been in development for the last 10 years under Agenda 21. And
I just heard him say it.
Yeah. And in California, they've already got a few places situated like that or are building them where everything is in the building. You don't have to leave the building.
Wow. You see this?
Yeah, that's and I forget exactly how that was supposed to affect the rural areas, but it's they in all these cities that's getting a lot of money, and that's what they're getting it for, to get this Agenda 21 pushed through.
And see, maybe like when it comes to the rural areas, right? Because doesn't you live in the rural area as well? Because I know I do.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I know I live in a rural area. And so what that means is that, it's lots of land. Like, we own and have lots of land, and, pretty much like stuff is ways out for you to be able to get the things that you need. And, that's why I said, like, far as like when it comes to the farming and the gardening and, stuff of that nature, it's needed. It's needed right along now because of a lot of that's about to take place, But I think that's why they say so much about the rural area, Mr. Bass, because like said, we are like, we're on land, we're far away from, like, it's maybe like so far till you get to a grocery store. Like, you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have a friend that lives about 6 miles from me. Every year they do a garden, and I just help with buying seeds. And they and then when as they harvest, I get some of what they harvest.
Oh yeah, because they be bringing you some beautiful vegetables too, baby. Those squash and all of that, they be beautiful. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but hey, one thing about it, they could try that shit in their rural area if you want to. Guess what? That's why we out in weeds and woods, and We have what we need, and we ain't bothering nobody. Ain't that right, Mr. Bass?
That's a fact. And you better believe everybody
Be
out there.
ready for whatever.
Yeah, it's prepared. Yes, indeed.
Trey Lynn in the comment section. Welcome, Trey Lynn. Trey Lynn and made it back in. So, Mr. Bass, you can go ahead on and run the next clip. But yeah, we ready in the rural areas. We have what we need, even though whatever may be spaced out, we on acres and we whatever, we have what we need. We ain't bothering nobody. And when that time comes, guess what? Okay, think it's a game now. Y'all come with that shit if you want to. Go ahead, Mr. Bass.
The feds are investigating one of the largest drug busts in U.S. history.
In June 2019, news breaks of a massive seizure in the Port of Philadelphia. 20 tons of drugs in a single seizure.
Authorities say the drugs could have a street value of more than $1 billion.
This was not like just any other drug trafficking case. Yes, drugs are smuggled on container ships every day, but this one was extraordinary.
Now, Mr. Bass, Wanda. Now, so you really think that somebody just set that up
of involvement of the crew
and got those drugs coming in like that? So, like, you really just think they're just an ordinary person that got them drugs coming in like that, right? Isn't that not your government?
Multiple crews on
Yeah,
multiple
you know
ships
the
with these massive loads
those
of drugs
massive cartels. They ain't nobody governments in these different countries.
Gangland
Absolutely.
deal that overlays global container shipping.
And what it is, they just cutting each other out. It's evil battling evil. They don't expose. Listen, we gonna get so bad they exposing each other.
that could have ramifications for the wider
Yep.
shipping industry.
Mr. Bass, see if you can cut your volume up a little bit on it.
Really interesting and
It's the
problematic
video.
tension just in the nature of the
Okay,
globalized
gotcha.
economy. Most people don't give a second thought to the way that their goods arrive. It all arrives on these giant, massive vessels that are sailing around the world.
90% of global trade is conducted on ships, and every year, $14 trillion of goods are moved around the world.
The shipping industry is essentially the backbone of globalization, of a global economy. What that means is that there's this pressure on ports and on shipping companies and on customs authorities to ensure that global trade runs smoothly and that it runs quickly. Every time a container is opened, that slows down the trade.
It also prevents security services, customs officials, and others from really digging in and examining the containers as they move through this system.
The ports of Northern Europe, primarily Antwerp in Belgium and Rotterdam in the Netherlands, have long been central to global trade, dating all the way back to the spice trade hundreds of years ago. As a result, the infrastructure built up around these ports has been increasingly efficient and spectacular. As the market for cocaine has grown in Europe, it only makes sense to be shipping them through these two ports in the north. That gives the traffickers an opportunity to not necessarily service the markets in the Netherlands or in Belgium, but all across Europe and even down into Africa and Asia as well. We visited one of these law enforcement customs stations where they scan cargo that they believe contains illicit goods. On this trip, just a regular day in the port of Antwerp, customs officials had pulled aside a shipping container. It had a high risk level, and they put it through the scanner and ended up searching it. It was cocoa beans from South America. Upon searching the container, they found almost 1,000 kilos of cocaine.
We have several examples of where they are use all their creativity to get things past us. I'm going to show you an image of an import of a Cadillac, a pink Cadillac. And then you see in the door of the Cadillac all kind of strange packages. So when we examined it, it was ecstasy, 50 kilos of ecstasy. As you see here, they filled like the shells of pineapples with cocaine. This one is an import of teak from Ecuador. The left pile of wood had darker edges. The cocaine was hidden in the wood itself. And also the structure of the container and the truck. Sometimes they hid stuff in the structure, like in the floor or the ceiling.
On a yearly basis, we are talking about 40 to 50,000 containers which are scanned. The number of containers entering and leaving the port are millions of millions. And today, we do not have the infrastructure to scan all the containers. We scan 1.5% of the containers entering the port of Antwerp. We stop a lot of tons. But if you look to the outcome, the effect is zero. There is still huge quantities of cocaine entering the European market.
For customs officials, they're essentially inundated with this problem and really outmatched. And that's something actually that the traffickers know and realize and have taken advantage of. For them to lose 1,000 kilos here, 1,000 kilos there is not the end of the world, because they just expect that they're just going to continue shipping more. Around 2008, 2009, there was kind of a new phenomenon that police officials, customs authorities started noticing. These large commercial ships, before they entered the ports, crew on board the ship would actually toss over bags filled with cocaine. One of their collaborators or co-conspirators would come up in a smaller kind of fishing vessel and pick up the cocaine. And this was known as the drop-off. And that was a really big breakthrough. What this meant was that there was somebody on the ship that was in on it. As European law enforcement investigators started kind of honing in on this problem of commercial shipping companies being at the center of the global cocaine trade, they started finding patterns, putting together pieces, and they realized that there was one shipping company that seemed to be at the center of a lot of these drop-offs, and that was MSC. Mediterranean Shipping Company is known by its initials MSC. They are today the world's largest shipping company.
MSC is a really interesting company. Over a period of 5 or 6 decades, they go from one ship to a fleet now of 650, surpassing everybody. It's a private company in Switzerland, so its finances in particular are pretty opaque. It does sort of make the miracle that MSC is in terms of the empire that they built over a short period of time all the more intriguing and all the more mysterious.
Starting in the early 2000s, MSC became a major player in the sea lanes from South America to Europe. They started investing heavily in what are called reefers or refrigerated containers to move refrigerated goods.
That turned out to be a golden opportunity for the traffickers, because you basically could put the coke inside containers of blueberries or strawberries or bananas, and it would move quickly through the system. And they don't want to slow those down because the fruit is a perishable commodity into Europe.
The cooling compartment is a very popular place to hide cocaine, because that compartment can be opened and closed without breaking the seal of the container.
One of the key moments in the build out of this infrastructure was the expansion of the Panama Canal in 2016. So you've got much bigger ships, much greater amounts of cargo. Again, much of it fruit and vegetables, meats, other kinds of commodities. But that expansion around 2016 basically correlates with a big jump in cocaine seizures in the ports of Antwerp and Rotterdam.
Because MSC dominated this particular route, they became an easy target by traffickers. Law enforcement investigators started seeing that cocaine that had made its way to Europe had actually stopped through a US port. So they started kind of working backwards at first, thinking, if all of this cocaine is ending up in Europe, but it's stopping in the US, how did we not detect it?
At the same time, European authorities are also conducting investigations where they're coming across the infiltration of other parts of the shipping industry generally, but especially MSC.
So over the course of 2 to 3 years, they started following more ships. And that was the MSC Desiree, the MSC Carlotta, the MSC Avni, and the MSC Guyane. The MSC Guyane is a monstrous ship. This is a ship that is the length of 3 football fields. It's one of the biggest ships sailing the oceans today.
MSC Guyane was following a particular route from the west coast of South America through the Panama Canal up to Philadelphia, and from there, from the east coast of the United States, over to Rotterdam and Antwerp.
Guyane set sail in the spring of 2019. In mid-June, after the Guyane had been at sea for many weeks, it pulled into the mouth of the Delaware Bay. This day, instead of the Guyane being met by a riverboat pilot, they were met by the Coast Guard, Philadelphia Police, Homeland Security officials, Customs and Border Protection officials. There were over 100 law enforcement agents waiting. They corral the crew, start questioning them, swabbing their hands for any traces of cocaine. Those came back positive. They started doing a deeper inspection on the containers and eventually found kind of their first hit of cocaine. And then they found more, and they found more, and eventually came up with the 20 tons. Initially, law enforcement investigators were stumped. How did they get so much cocaine on this ship? So what they came to find out through interviewing the crews and through other kind of physical evidence that they were able to obtain was that the cocaine was actually loaded onto the ship while it was in the open ocean of South America. As the Guyane was powering through the open ocean in the middle of the night, small boats pulled up alongside and essentially loaded the cocaine that way. The crew members used the crane of the Guyane and basically hoisted up large nets filled with the bales of cocaine onto the cargo ship. Then they would take that cocaine and then they pushed it into some of the containers and basically stashed it on the ship. So it was an extremely brazen operation.
They do this loading at sea, not just once, but multiple times. They load it as it's going down the west coast of South America. It turns around at a port in Chile and then goes back up, and they do it several times on the way back up. There were 8 crew members in all on the Guyane that was involved in the smuggling operation, included the chief mate, and the chief mate plays a really key role on the ship. He puts together the schedules, for example, of crewmen, so he can get the crew that he knows are in on this operation working, for example, all at night when he needs them to be there to load the cocaine. He also has a lot of information about the stowage plans, so which containers are going where. U.S. authorities did not arrest the captain of the ship, but you don't need the captain. But for an operation like this, you do need a very senior officer who can control the movement of the crew, the ship, and all sorts of things. And keep in mind that this wasn't just happening on one ship. U.S. authorities had also made seizures on the Carlotta and the Desiree, which they believed operated in exactly the same way. This is something that was by 2019, June of 2019, it was a pretty well-oiled system. So that's why they were confident they could move that many drugs, that tonnage of cocaine on a single load.
In total, there were about 8 crew members that were implicated in the Guyane smuggling. And of those 8, 4 of them had in fact been recruited before ever stepping foot on the Guyane on that particular voyage. At least one of them had been recruited in their home country of Montenegro.
Montenegro has a long history of seafarers. The country's right on the Adriatic, produces a lot of sailors and officers who are very skilled at what they do. And they've been playing the war centuries. MS taps into in a way that's bigger than any other shipping company. They employ a third or more than a third of Montenegro sailors.
Organized criminal groups are particularly strong in the Balkans. There's a network of individuals and operating there for years, really a breakup of as the economy there collapsed, it begat a lot of crime. For a cartel, if you're drug, only made, and it was easy to target not only sailors, but to target sailors on MSC ships.
senior law enforcement officials from at least 3 countries approached MSC management and said, look, this is what the problem is. They had been told that their crew were being recruited by the Balkan cartel. And so from the point of view of law enforcement in Europe and ultimately law enforcement in the US, MSC had multiple opportunities to try and fix this problem before 2019 and didn't do enough to do that. MSC's view is that they did try and do things that would help curb this problem. In some cases, they put guards on some ships going from the east coast of South America to Europe. They tried to find other ways which they could secure those logistic lines from traffickers. But their point mainly is that we were doing everything that every other shipping company was doing. There's an ongoing investigation based out of New York into the Balkan cartel and key individuals in the cartel. Recently, there was a breakthrough arrest in Miami. This individual was a former heavyweight boxer from the Balkans. And according to the indictment, he played a major coordinating role helping to recruit sailors aboard MSC ships. There are 8 crewmen who were charged and ultimately pled guilty and are in federal prisons now.
After the crew members were sentenced, it turned out the case wasn't entirely over. There was still the lingering question of what responsibility does MSC have in any of this? And it turns out that there's a statute that says essentially that if you're caught with any illicit cargo, in particular, if you're caught with cocaine, you will be fined $1,000 per ounce. Customs and Border Protection authorities added up all the cocaine, the 20 tons of cocaine, multiplied it by the $1,000 per kilo, and came up with what their fine would be. It was over $600 million, the largest fine ever assessed against a commercial carrier. The Guyane was seized by US officials during the course of the search and was detained for over a month.
The Guyane is worth at least $100 million. But it's also, once you seize it, you take one of these massive assets out of the lineup of cargo ships that the company is using to move goods around the world. So it was a pretty shocking event for MSC. They reached an agreement with US authorities to pay $50 million, which is essentially putting the ship out on bail. There's a civil case going on right now where there's an effort by US authorities to show that that initial seizure should turn into a forfeiture. In other words, MSC should lose the ship. MSC is arguing that they're not culpable. US government is arguing that, in fact, they are. And that case has the potential to really change the map for shipping companies. US authorities really want to make an example of this case, for not just MSC, but the shipping industry generally. It's absolutely clear MSC wasn't itself, as a company, smuggling the drugs. The Balkan cartel was smuggling the drugs. There's a question about how the company behaves as its infrastructure is being used and misused by drug trafficking.
Even the most amount of money that a shipping company can spend on this, on guards and on cameras and on other technology like smart containers that can detect when a container is open, even throwing money at that, it's going to be very difficult to make a dent in this problem because you still have an enormous trade in cocaine.
Even though there were 20 tons of cocaine on that ship, it was just a fraction of the overall cargo. The cocaine was found in 7 different containers, but that's 7 containers out of 4,000. It's a really, really, really hard problem to solve.
Hey, welcome Trey Lynn. Lynn, what's good?
Hey, y'all. Happy Friday, last Friday of the year.
All right, happy Friday, girl. You made it in, huh? Praise God, you made it in safely. from your rounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, I let the family know that you were gonna be tuning in, but a little bit late. But listen, y'all. So this is what I don't understand. Y'all know those cargoes, right? How they had those cargoes, they are always inspected. They go according to the weight and all of that, right? I'm gonna tell y'all what I think. This is just only what I think. There is a contract between them and the government, and what has happened is they officially made the deal, and when they crossed that water, they took that from them. That was their way of saying they seized it, but however, the U.S. government took it from them, and whatever, what y'all think?
I can see that. I can see that. And you heard what they said. They took the biggest cargo ship, which was that. I can't. I've just the name of it. Yeah. If they gonna hit you in your pockets, they gonna hit you with the big boy. So we gonna take the big boy. It's like seizing the big boy, and you might be able to get it out on bond later.
But the way they made they move, that that's how they making moves out there in the war. Them people out there fighting war, they going taking coke leaves, cocoa, drugs, guns. They doing all that. Excuse me. So that's excuse me. So I think that that's what took place. But however, we all know that the drugs that come through, and this is not allegedly because it's the truth. Any drugs that come through the USA and come through and get into these neighborhoods or whatever, it is brought in through the government. That is the truth. Ain't no need to lie. We have shown it on here. It is what it is, and it's not allegedly because it's the truth. Mr. Bass, what you think? What you think with that right there?
Well, number one is the economy of the U.S. is run on drugs. So, the U.S. government is involved some kind of way. And more than likely, it's the alphabet boys that's involved with this, Yeah. So until we can get our economy running on the things it should be running on, we're going to keep on having this problem. But it's not only sustaining our economy, it's also making the elite even richer because they're the ones behind it.
Exactly. Absolutely. The war on drugs. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, they started it. It came from them. It couldn't have came over here unless they allowed it to come. Then they want to play the back fiddle. Oh, we didn't know. Nigga, you bought the stuff. How you don't know what you sent over? It can't come unless y'all authorize it.
Absolutely. That's just the dirty game that they play. Like said, they was in agreement with them to bring it through here, and when they got to a certain point, that's when they hit them and took it from them, and to get money off of them, to boom them or whatever. It was a cross game. That's what the government do. They play the cross game.
It's like a lottery pick. We're gonna throw their names in there. Whoever we pick, they gonna be the example for the day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you go back and look at Freeway Ricky Ross story, and they even did a movie, but it was pertaining to the investigative journalist that busted the CIA on the.
So did they come with and keep it real that Freeway was a snitch?
Well,
and that ain't allegedly.
Well,
but he worked with them folks. But keep going, Mr. Bass.
Yeah, well, he was working with the CIA. They the ones that was giving it to him, but he's also the one that they gave the information that the CIA was the ones involved with having all that crack in these hoods in the so-called African American hoods.
Mm-hmm. So in actuality, he did he pulled a demo on them, right?
Yeah.
He flipped the script.
Exactly.
Yeah, he did what they do. So,
Yeah, that's why most of the people don't consider what he did snitching, because he told on the CIA.
Mm-hmm. True that.
Yeah.
Shout out to Meecha. Welcome back, love. She said they own the planes and the ships that bring it over here. Absolutely.
All of it.
All of it, you know, and they go to these third world countries. They go to Pakistan, and all of these places. That's what they go and do. They go and take these people things, you know, like certain parts of the world, like you got the Pakistanians, the Palestinians. They had a rich oil. They went over there to take it, and not only that, the coca leaves. They had those leaves that produce the cocaine. They're called coca leaves. So that's what they and poppy. What else they call them? Space poppy.
Poppies are in the Middle East. Poppies, hashish, weed. So the coca stuff comes from South America. And Mexico.
That pure stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's what they do. So you're right, Meecha, and that's what they do. You know, they go over there, they send your family, your mom, your dad, your son, your daughter, your niece, your nephew, your cousin, your sister, your brother. That's what they do. They send them all over there to war just to take people's shit illegally.
Yep.
And then they get killed or get blew up or something of that nature, going to do the dirty deeds of that whore called, Babylon, the great whore. Okay, so y'all, Mr. Bass, you ready for the next link, baby?
You gotta mute up and I'll pull it up.
All right, let's go. Yeah, TBT family, we bringing y'all different things, right?
What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy. Go Black to Africa. I'm here in beautiful Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, the capital, and I'm really enjoying myself. But let me show you this video right here. We know Whoopi Goldberg's been in the uproar when it comes to the information she said. But I want to do this video, because I've already did one about her, about this Jewish guy who makes this statement that you need to listen to. Check it out. I'll be back.
Rabbi, welcome to the program. Would you care to give Whoopi a history lesson?
Rita, thank you for being such a great friend of our community and our people. You always have been. But let me just be clear. Whoopi Goldberg, what she's really doing is playing a game of one-upmanship. Who has suffered more is what she's saying. We in the Black community, we're identifiable. We can't really hide the color of our skin. We have suffered more. I've learned as a Jew, games of one-upmanship when it comes to human suffering and annihilation are never wise. The Black community has suffered immeasurably, as has the Jewish community. The Holocaust was the world's greatest crime. Now, let's just be clear. Hitler saw the world in terms of race. His entire Weltanschauung, his worldview was all about race. The Jews were the lowest of the low, the race that needed to be exterminated. Slavs were somewhere in the middle. They only needed to be enslaved.
Now, he sits here and says he doesn't play the game of one-upmanship in human suffering or in annihilation of a people. But then in the same breath, he says that the Holocaust was the world's greatest crime? Hold the heck up, Rabbit. Hold up. The Holocaust was only 12 years long. Now, I'm going to give it to you all Jewish people that y'all say that it was 6 million. I'm not going to take it from you. The world's greatest crime? Let me give you some facts. Slavery was 400 years. Let me put that together, equate that. 400 years. When to get out of even the interior Africa, how many people died from that? While he was in these dungeons, sitting on the shores, waiting months in and out. You go ahead and do your history on how many dungeons to this day sits on the west coast of Africa. How many died there? You haven't been there. Most of y'all Jews didn't even go there. How many people died? To take months of travels on a ship with people of 300, 400, 500 people squeezed in, defecating on one another, disease infested. How many people died? In that 400 years with shackles and plantations of working in hard sugar plantations and tobacco, how many people died? Do your history now. 12 years was the life expectancy for a sugar plantation as a slave. Let's do the math. When you talk about millions were sent over to Brazil, on up to millions sent over to North America, the Central America. For 400 years, how many people died in the 400 years? The Holocaust is the world's greatest crime? Hold up, buddy. They came for y'all. Matter of fact, the world fought for your freedom. Matter of fact, they created your own state of Israel, that you can govern your own self. Where are we? Still in countries being dominated by your people, the Caucasians. So you sit here and try to make it seem like you don't play this game of one up, but then you come out of your breath and talk about how the world's greatest crime was the Holocaust. You see, this is the sickness in the subconscious that you all play and don't even know you're aware of saying when it comes to tens of millions of our people were slaughtered, raped, robbed, and pillaged. That the numbers they can't even count of how many were lost. And you rather play this game instead of trying to establish a state for the Black people in America and stand up for the injustices by the system of racism that is against the Black people. You rather hide in your own corner, believing that your Holocaust was worse. 12 years, buddy, out of 400 years, that the numbers you can't even count. The world's worst crime. Do you know how many countries? There were 7 countries that they said that were involved in the crime, in the slavery, not to include those who benefited off of slavery. 400 years of free labor that many people's businesses, companies, institutions reaped off of. While your people in the Northern Plains, by your own people, Caucasians, that took you through your Holocaust, the rest of the world came for your rescue. We still looking for rescue. That's why I say our rescue is go black to Africa. So don't believe the hype, people, when these people sit out here and make it seem as though that the Holocaust can be equal or can be compared to the world slavery. You can't compare, and nobody should dare try to compare, because while you sit in your state of Israel, that your people can govern yourselves. You can create your own businesses and companies and institutions and educational systems and banking, while the world pushed billions of dollars in Israel because of the Holocaust. You say nothing and do nothing for the Black community that has suffered to this day from slavery. So while you sit in your subconscious mindset and you act as though that y'all have the world's greatest crime that happened against you, please educate yourself and realize the devastation that your people, Jewish people, played in the slave trade, who owned some of the ships. Please do your homework and look at Who owned the slaves down in South America? Please do your homework and see, did Jewish people, which they did, own slaves in America? In Central America, all around the globe. See, slavery just didn't go towards the Americas. There's slaves that went around over to India, made it over there into the Asian world. Oh, yes, many people benefited off of slavery. It was a world slavery. Family, don't believe the hype, because these rabbits do not realize that the holes that they're creating to try to send you down the wrong path without really acknowledging the truth of the matter. The individual pain that suffer is a suffering. No one person can say, well, your arm was cut off. I suffer worse than my eye been pulled out. But we're talking about collectively how many people suffer and to this day still suffer. It's the black people's hands down. But how can we change this? See, this is where the Jewish people need to rise up and say, hold up. If we got our own state and we can govern ourselves, why isn't the world not doing it for the Africans, Americans? Why can't they enjoy some of the liberties and freedoms that we have? If they suffered 400 years and the world benefited off of their backs of free labor, and so many that rape, rob, and pillage that the numbers you can't even count, over 400 years compared to 12 years. Where's the ADL and all the SPLCs and all of these acronyms? Where are they? I'm sick of it. And you should be too. This is your man, not your boy. Go Black to Africa.
Think about it. Think about it. Think about it.
Boy, I'm over here on this end. Tickled y'all. He call them rabbits.
Right. But they always trying to one up anything that's dealing with the black. Well, we had Holocaust. Yeah, y'all did. However, still to this day, we are being treated like the stuff on the bottom of a barrel.
Facts. And like he said, 12 years has nothing on the 400 plus years that, our ancestors and even until now, you know what I'm saying, with the music, they got all the type of ways. Like the Winley Lynch said, you want to have a Negro enslaved for so many years, even after that, this is what you do. And he ran the plan down. So my thing is, 12, like he said, 12 years ain't got nothing on what, we the people have been enduring and still enduring, so, and then they talk about the Holocaust, and then you got to realize, even with that being said, them motherfuckers was being slaughtered then because they were evil. It's just that simple. They were evil.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't. You'll never have any type of conversation if you are trying to say, "Well, my people had this going on too." You starting off wrong. That's not gonna bring people together with a solution. It's not gonna do nothing but piss people off.
Facts. And let me guess why he called their ass rabbits, because they be jumping everywhere. You got something to say, Mr. Bay?
They do. Fucking raccoon. Excuse me.
Yeah, I just getting ready to say, I just shared that clip on the bus to all them rabbis with their trafficking, and put on there.
Yeah, I think you should play that in here too, Mr. Bass, for the rabbits. Yay. Yeah,
look
slip
at
that
Candace.
on in. Slip that one on in, Mr. Bass. What the rabbits doing out here? Look at KC said Hitler had to kill though. Absolutely. Absolutely. Y'all know they've been telling us all our life that Hitler was this bad person and this, that, dog, baby. Hitler was portrayed. He was trying to be God, baby. Hitler was killing all them evil motherfuckers, but he kept telling us that we are the real, true, chosen people of God. All that. That's why they killed him, because he was speaking and telling everything, baby.
But that's how they are in all the industries and in this world right now. If they know somebody that know their secrets, they ready to take them off Earth to keep them secrets secret.
Oh yeah,
Facts.
most definitely.
So as I think that's Lillian or either Vita was like the girl Whoopi be bouncing and she stay recanting, right?
I said that. I said Whoopi always she go in hard and she come back pulling it back. So now when she say stuff, I don't take her serious. I be like, what she don't represent the black people, so stop trying to say that she do. She don't.
She don't.
She don't. Because if she
No,
did,
no.
she would stand strong. But she want to keep the checks going. She don't want to be blackballed. So she recants her story. Just don't say nothing then. I mean, you ain't figured out by now that you can't speak your piece, so just shut up then.
Let me look at that from a different angle right quick.
Okay.
And that different angle, those shoes laugh same time I did. That
yeah, you heard Suge laugh.
yeah, from this angle. She put it out there, so it's out there. You know what I mean? Even though she had to turn around and recant, but it's out there. You can't take that back.
Yep.
You can say what you want to say, but you can't take it back.
Facts. Now she control opposition.
I don't disagree with that. But if she put it out there and they jump on her, you need to look at what she's saying, whether she recant or not, because it's out there.
Okay, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah.
But this is the thing, because when that's all part of the view and everything, but when you dealing with those type of people and you done got out there and got ridiculed on something you said, that should make you, and I'm not saying dumb herself down, but at this point you really got to think before you speak.
Facts. And not only that, like, I've never gotten into the view because the couple of times that I glanced at it, it's really controlling. Like, they control the narrative. To me, that's personally to me, because I stay looking at stuff different. They are a what you call them damn peoples, the little talk show. They the type of talk show that they steer the narrative and they're one-sided. They're one-sided, so I never could get with none of them. None of them, period.
And it's only enough black people on there just to make the quota.
There you go. And really they be against everything, like they don't speak the truth. Then they be against the truth, and things that are being exposed, they make mockery of it. You get what I'm saying? So I don't take them serious. I don't.
Those women, all but the one that they have on there are hard left, and then that one is hard right. And they bump heads because of that, but they know what they're doing. I don't watch it. Only time I will go back and watch it is if somebody come up and say somebody said something or some controversy about what they said. I need to go back and see it myself, and not go by what somebody else is telling me.
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way. I don't watch them, but if something come up, I'll go back and see what it is. But that's all Barbara Walters. That's all I'm gonna say. That's all Barbara Walters. That's her lane. And
well, she's Ashkenazi, right? Yeah, Barbara Walters Ashkenazi, and she's the one that keeping Whoopi in there.
That part. That part.
I will see if I can pull that up boss lady is after while this next video is playing.
Okay, yeah, but with it is control opposition. She another Oprah on the low. Let's go, Mr. Bass.
Say what she said. Let's get it.
What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy, Go Black to Africa. I want to share this video with you about a woman, Asian woman to be exact, who's going to share a little bit about how this division amongst Asians and Blacks came about because of the white system that wanted to use them as a buffer so that then they can pit one another so that whites can continue to be free. So check this video out. I'll be back.
Have an influx of racial minorities who knew. Please be patient with me because there's so much here. I think the quick answer is that Asian Americans are given white privilege, especially the Asian Americans who fit the model minority stereotype. The quid pro quo for receiving that privilege is upholding white supremacy culture, which means being anti-Black. I was talking with somebody last night who was pointing out that the Civil Rights Amendment was passed in 1964, but also in the 1960s, the United States opened the door to Asian immigration. So now you have an influx of racial minorities who knew nothing about the history of white violence against Black people, knew nothing about the Black civil rights movement. So they arrived with civil rights, not understanding how that came to be. And also it effectively erased the United States' own anti-Asian history, because Asian Americans came in not necessarily knowing about the Chinese Exclusion Act or the internment of Japanese Americans in the United States during World War II. And I think that Asian Americans are used as a buffer between the Black community and the white community, because in the 1960s, there was almost a racial reckoning. The white power structure almost had to face accountability for the history of violence against Black people. But instead, Asian Americans were inserted and were pit against each other, so that we're always up against each other, and that basically like white supremacy escapes accountability. And the example that I think of that sort of started like the root of a lot of tension is Asian Americans were buying into the negative media stereotypes of Black people. And then in the events that led up to what became known as the LA riots, the LAPD kettled protests away from wealthy white neighborhoods and into Koreatown, and then they left. And we know how that played out. So again, the two communities being pitted against each other and away from the white power structure. And obviously the model minority myth is used to oppress the Black community. And there's so much here. I will be getting more into it, but I feel like that's the quickest answer that I can give that gets a little bit into the history. And I'm really curious to know what the Black community and Asian Americans feel about this. But please be patient with me. Thank you.
What do you think? Let me share these right here. There's a few things she did not mention. We have to understand that many immigrants, to include other groups that were out here in America, benefited off of the civil rights. You see, when the civil rights was going on, there were those who leached on trying to get their rights. The feminist movement, even the gay rights, and these other organizations that were trying to get their name heard, whether it was the Jews, all of these different organizations were trying to get their civil rights. The civil rights was really based upon Blacks and how they were looking to have rights, because of course, everybody knows we were always taking the back seat. But what turned out was that everybody got ahead of us. And there were opportunities for people to take advantage of a system that was slowly changing. And those were those who were able to get business loans and get into new housing areas and have all of these different type of programs that were really put out for others and not us. And this is where a lot of the people need to understand that off of our marching, our protesting, so many people benefited off of our blood, sweat, guts, and tears. Now, she mentioned about how white America was trying to pit one another against it. And yet, here it is, when you go into Black communities, you will find Asians, Hispanics, and those other nationalities who put up shops, who make money off of the Black communities. And yet, it is statistically shown that Black people lag in these different programs and opportunities, business loans and housing and education. It seems as though that people are continually going and piggybacking off of the backs of Black people. Let me give you an example. When the Black Lives Matter movement happened, I, for my children, went out and I marched out and let my voice be heard for them because I was leaving America. I went to 4 major cities. But what I found very interesting was there were those leeches. There were those who were on the coattails of the Blacks in this march with their signs. The LGBT movement, I've seen senior groups, I've seen so many different groups trying to get their voice heard by a large movement for Black people. You see, just like civil rights movement, everybody fell under the umbrella and the Blacks got forgotten. Isn't that true how it is today? You have these presidents that can sign executive orders and bring up hate crimes, anti this and anti that, anti-Asian and anti-Semitic Semitism and all of these different things. But what anti do you have for Black people? This is a big problem. And this is what many people who are moving to America have to understand. When we were going through the struggle, you all happened to come in and benefit. And yet we reap nothing. Every African, every Asian, every European who comes into America today, these laws were created because of us opening the eyes of the injustices, opening up these defined groups so that they can get whatever is rightfully theirs in a civil, rightful way. But we still don't get that. So I'm saying to every group that we do see now, the Japanese have written a letter to President Biden. We're having the Asian community starting to stand up. I am looking for the Jewish community to stand up because you all know what we went through was horrific like you went through. And these other groups that know this is not right. We must put the Black people back in their rightful place where we are standing behind and everybody else is going through the door. We keep getting set back. Another example. You saw when the Haitians now last year were trying to come into America. What did America do when they saw the Black faces? They put them on planes and returned them back. They only let just a few in that they could go ahead and verify. But who are now they're letting in? Busloads with cities are being inundated with these overflow of people coming into the country without any backlash, pushback. This is what we need to wake up to, family. Anytime a skin color gets black, we always got to go back. All of y'all who are benefiting in America, because we were the ones in the forefront marching while the police sick their dogs, put us in prisons or jails with firemen hoses on us, being spit on and stones being thrown at us. We were the ones who were able to get the integration into the neighborhoods that many of y'all enjoy. Many of y'all are in the school systems that you all are enjoying, your children, based off of the blood, gut, and tears and the sweat that we went through. The Jewish community used to be walking with the Black community, but because of them getting their civil rights, they forgot about the Blacks, who we were arm in arm. And also the Asian, the Japanese, the Chinese, and all of them. Where are y'all at? Time for y'all to come back. This is your man, not your boy. Go Black to Africa.
Think about
Mr. Bass.
Yes, ma'am.
Wow, can you pull up some info on her? Barbara Walters, you just spoke of her and what you just said, and here it is. Lo and behold.
Yeah.
Oh, did just say it.
The dude, Zachary K, he's done the gematria on her.
Uh-huh.
And I just got a flash because I follow him. And that's what they were saying. He didn't say wow or anything.
So is it actually before we speak on it, is it actually true?
If he's got the gematria on it, I believe so. But I will do that. You want me to start this other video first?
Yes, sir. You can however you want to run it. Cool with me. You can go and start the other one.
Yeah.
Now if TMZ dropped it. If TMZ drop it, then it's true.
TMZ dropped it.
I said if they drop it, I dropped it. I don't know. I haven't even want to look.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll research it as soon as I start this other video.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bass. Vita said, I'm telling y'all she died almost the same day Betty White died last year. I wonder if they'll bring that up. I don't know, Vita. I don't know. But I know some of y'all. What's with Gladys Knight, y'all? I don't know why
They're trying to get these old timers out of here.
I'm on this back end and I just heard her name. When I put it'll be 3 by Sunday morning. I don't know why. In Jesus' name, I don't know why I heard Gladys Knight. What she got going on? What's up with her?
I ain't heard nothing about her.
But I heard the name. Let's go, Mr. Bass.
Let's get it.
Oh my Lord, no, Vita didn't say it's true. CNN dropped it. CNN, Vita, out of all the networks, Vita says CNN. Check a nigga network.
Right. Kid said it is true too.
What's up, family? This is your man, not your boy, Gold Black to Africa. I happen to be right here in Ethiopia, the city of Baghdad, headed back on over to Addis Ababa. So I want to give you all this video of Whoopi Goldberg, who now is in the hot seat again because of comments she made about the Jewish community. Check this video out and I'll be back.
Saying, quote, they did that to Black people too, but it doesn't change the fact that you could not tell a Jew on a street. You could find me. You couldn't find them. That was the point I was making. The Times said when the reporter reminded Goldberg that Nazis identified Jews as a race, she rebutted, the oppressor is telling you what you are. Why are you believing them? They're Nazis. The article already invoking backlash and deja vu from some critics on social media, including from a Holocaust survivor and author who said Goldberg continues to use the Holocaust as her punching bag. Back in January, Goldberg was responding to reports of a school banning a graphic novel about the Holocaust when she said this on The View.
The Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race. No, it's about a different race. But it's not about race. It's not about race. What is it about? Because it's about man's inhumanity to man.
And doubled down on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
I was saying you can't call this racism. This was evil. This wasn't based on the skin. You couldn't tell who was Jewish.
After public pressure, she apologized.
But it is indeed about race because Hitler and the Nazis considered Jews to be an inferior race.
The View had the Anti-Defamation League on the show to explain the history of persecution the Jewish people have faced. But the Anti-Defamation League did not call for Goldberg to be canceled.
I don't believe in cancel culture. I like the phrase that my friend Nick Cannon uses. We need counsel culture. You know, in the Jewish faith, Don, we have a concept called shuvah. And shuvah means redemption. It means all of us have the power to admit when we do wrong and to commit to doing better.
But ABC still suspended her for 2 weeks. Now ABC's next move is unclear after these latest comments published on Christmas Eve. The company has yet to respond for comment. Tonight, Stand With Us, an Israel education organization calling on Goldberg to educate herself and others.
Well, I'm a daughter of Holocaust survivors, so I'm very sensitive to all this. This is about understanding what anti-Semitism today looks like and how dangerous it really is and how it's escalating around the country and around the world.
We've reached out to representatives for Goldberg who has identified as Jewish in the past. We haven't heard back.
What do you think? Let me say this right here, that each and every one of you all should understand, especially those who are not in America and want to understand this whole mindset. I agree with both sides, the Jewish side and also Whoopi's side. Why is that? Whoopi's side is stating that, hold up, you cannot be a race when you all have made the determining factor that is skin color. How is that? She made reference to, you know, the boxes you got to check when you go filling out applications and resumes and all these other things that you have to do to identify who you are. Check the box if you're white. Check the box if you're black. Check the box if you're Hispanic. Check the box if you're non-Hispanic. You know, and this has the race that you are. How can you say that you are a race when it's not a box that's there to check for being a Jew? Now, this whole thing that Hitler was basically killing them because of their race of being Jew, you cannot distinguish them from one and another. Being Caucasian, same color, you will not be able to decide or determine who is a Jew and who is not. Jewish people, really those Ashkenazis, Sephardic, are really stemming from the religion, Judaism. So are they really a race? But I also agree with the Jewish community. And why is that, Go Black? The reason why is because the fact that in America now is in a place that you can decide what you are, who you are at any given time. Yes, you can say if you are a man, if you really are a woman. And you can say that you are a woman if you really are a man. And now because they have blurred the lines of right and wrong, well, they're making it now to where people are going to be confused in who they really are. There's not going to be any more defined terminologies as a universal term or terminology for people to see who you are. So the Jewish community is saying, no, we consider our religion to be a race. Well, can you argue with them when you are really in a society that says that you can pick and decide what you want to be? So why is that? Check out my next video, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you all why Black people should play the game that America has as far as identifying yourself with such. It's going to be very comical, but yet kind of interesting and true that you will be able to benefit off of this game they're playing. But anyway, I'm here in Ethiopia, and they are very strong on that color to them is not an issue. I realize that most African countries I go to, color is not an issue. It's only when you go around Europeans that they want to divide and define people by their color and make them to be the superior one. This is the issue you got to deal with when you live around or in countries of European. But when you're around all people of your same color here in Africa, you're just that tribe, or they refer to themselves as that country, or they might refer to themselves as something else, as their religion. I'm saying, family, the beast will always fight against you. The question of it is, how do you navigate in the game it's playing so that you can benefit? Because see, now it's time to make your reparations off the game that's played. Watch my next video that I do, and you're going to learn something. This is your man, not your boy. Go Black to Africa. Think about
All right, what I found out is, yeah, she is definitely gone, but there's no cause of death.
Old age. That vampire blood ran out.
Yep, that adrenochrome, baby. Allegedly.
That's why she stopped being on The View anyway, because she was getting old, and yeah, so it was a matter of time anyway for her to, check out off Earth. Man, that right after Whoopi did say what she said, but I bet Whoopi won't take over for her.
Facts. And see, you see why I put it up there that her death comes 6 days after Whoopi's statement was made.
Yeah, I thought about that when I was looking it up, and I was wondering how much, if they were as close as I think they were, how much did Barbara Walters reveal to Whoopi?
Good one. That's a good one.
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I could see them they really good friends.
Yep. And do you think that maybe they wanted to get Whoopi ass up out of him, and Barbara was like, "No, I go and see it."
Possibility. And if she gone, we don't see Whoopi no more. That's gonna be a year.
Well, I'm looking forward to checking out
Vita says she 93.
Yeah, it says 93. I went and looked it up. She passed away. First it said pray for her. She's ill. And right after that, the next one was she's dead.
Okay, so McMahon said, "Truth be told, I have a question. A RICO is to get rid of groups, right?" Correct. It is, McMahon. Why haven't they rounded up the Klan, white supremacists, Proud Boys, etc.? It's because the government are the. Why would they round up people like that when they have people such as us that don't think these people are who they are?
They never rounded up because they are the government.
All right, let's go. Let's talk about it.
There you go. There you go.
So they gonna tell them they gonna round up their own people. That's
Fact.
like put me in jail because I'm a KKK or something. I'm one of them.
Hey,
That
but
ain't
look, you have some of us that love the KKK. Believe it or not, that's what part of they voted for when they put their man over there in their house. Well, he ain't in their house. He be on green screens, but yeah, that's what they voted for when they wanted that KKK. Let's go, y'all. Keep talking.
right. And he already had one foot in the grave. Shit.
KKK is controlled opposition. They is started by the alphabet folks.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
They
That was
might just say
implemented
the
into the
FBI.
Yep, that was implemented into the Democratic Party and so forth, so forth. Let's talk about it. Mm.
That's why it is what it is. They call them the good old boys for a reason.
Look at Kissy, y'all. Kiss Christ, she said 93 years old. She had a long run. Look, y'all, Suge was asleep. Suge must I laughed when I said that, baby, 93 years old. She had a long run. She sure been running, girl.
She running and running.
Wow.
Look, she sure been running, baby. She been running, jogging, and doing some everything.
Hey, we got one more Whoopi video.
All righty, yep. Let's get it, Mr. Bass. And then we about to bring y'all Mr. Bass came with the clips to show you all what you all be indulging in unknowingly, but that's what we are here for, to bring y'all the truth, y'all. So yeah, that's what it do. We ain't trying to go along to get along, as Kwame Brown says. We ain't trying to go along to get along, to be doing trends and all of that there. We just gonna bring you all the truth. That's what it is, y'all. Let's go. Sugar.
Whoopi Goldberg is in hot water again for making new controversial statements, stating that the Jewish community is divided on whether or not Jews or Jewish is a race, in an interview with the Times journalist Janice Turner. According to USA Today, Whoopi Goldberg said in an explosive quote, "It doesn't change the fact that you could not tell a Jew on a street, you can find me. You couldn't find them." I want to share a key piece of history most of you may not be aware of about Whoopi Goldberg. Well before Kyrie Irving was born and before Kanye West was of legal age, Whoopi Goldberg has been in the news a number of times for making controversial statements. Whoopi Goldberg is very open and she is unapologetic about her heritage. Speaking at a charity event in London, May 2011, according to the Jewish Chronicles, the world's oldest Jewish newspaper since 1841, Whoopi Goldberg makes it clear that she is a Jew. Whoopi Goldberg, "I'm Jewish and I talk to God." She's Black, she played a nun, and her dad was a preacher. But Whoopi insists, "I'm a real Goldberg." She may be well known as a singing nun in Sister Act, but actress Whoopi Goldberg has claimed she feels just as Jewish as she does Black. Speaking this week at a charity event in London, the Oscar-winning actress said, "I just know I am Jewish. I practice nothing. I don't go to temple, but I do remember the holidays. In other words, the feast days. Religion is a lot of work. It's exhausting. So I keep it simple. I have a pretty good relationship with God. We talk." She added, "When people heard the name Whoopi Goldberg and then I turn up, I was not what they were expecting. People would ask me in a roundabout way, 'So are you?' And I would say, 'What?' And they said, 'What does your name mean?' And I would say, 'Do you mean Whoopi?' And they'd say, 'No, the other name.' And then they would say, 'Come on, are you Jewish?' And I always say, 'Would you ask me that if I was white?' I bet not. The name is wonderful for starting conversations, This is not the first time Whoopi Goldberg stated publicly her heritage of being a Jew. Back in 1994, according to the Orlando Sentinel, Whoopi Goldberg offers no apologies. What else can they say, wonders Whoopi Goldberg? I'm anti-Semite. I'm a bigot. I'm a disgrace to my race. I'm a disgrace to women. I'm a homewrecker. I've slept with everyone in Hollywood. It's no fun being an outspoken African American Jewish female superstar, but it does pay well. The article goes on to say, she's been accused of anti Semitism for responding to requests for celebrity recipes with her tongue in cheek Jewish American princess fried chicken recipe. I'm a Jewish American princess. That's probably what bothers most people. It's not my problem. People are uncomfortable with the fact that I'm Jewish. Her publicist explains that Goldberg is a name taken from her mother's side of the family and that the actress embraces the Jewish faith, though she attended Catholic schools. And even if I wasn't Jewish, she says, I mean, come on, Jewish American princess? It's like being called a lawyer. By the way, according to Ancestry.com, the name Goldberg is of Jewish Ashkenazic origin. It is a compound of the German word gold, which simply means gold, and berg, which means mountain. It means hill. The Anti-Defamation League, the ADL CEO, Jonathan Greenblatt, wrote in his contradictory tweet, quote, additionally, Whoopi's comments show a complete lack of awareness of the multi-ethnic, multiracial makeup of the Jewish community. She needs to apologize immediately and actually commit to educating herself on the true nature of anti-Semitism. Here's the contradiction if you did not catch it. Jonathan Greenblatt says, Whoopi Goldberg's comments show a complete lack of awareness of the multi-ethnic, multiracial makeup of the Jewish community. So how can the Jew or Jewish community be considered a race singular when the makeup of this community, in Jonathan Greenblatt's own words, multiracial and multi-ethnic? Is the ADL saying that a person of another racial group changes their racial status when they become Jewish by way of conversion through Judaism, according to the law of return? According to the Jewish Agency for Israel, for the purpose of this law, in other words, the law of return, Jew means a person who is born of a Jewish mother or has become converted to Judaism and who is not a member of another religion. Does this mean that Christians, Muslims, and other racial and ethnic groups who embrace these religions can now stake a claim of consideration to be classified as a racial group? I think we as a people need to make it a point to fully research the matter before we share our thoughts. The last article is very revealing. Whoopi Goldberg is clear about the ridicule she faced from her own community. The same community at that time echoed the same sentiments the character Mr. from the movie Color Purple stated about her looks. I remember Whoopi Goldberg being the butt end of most ugly jokes from within our community. So don't be delusional to think that she's now just waking up to who she is. My only question to Whoopi Goldberg, in the past, for decades, you were very public about your heritage of being a Jew. Why are you not taking advantage of the latest controversies to reiterate your heritage of being a Jew? What changed? What's your thoughts? Before you post your comments, click the like and subscribe to the channel.
Listen, Genesis.
That is so funny because she has always said that she was a Jew, and
Yep.
yeah, she and that her African, black, whatever, however you want to say it, heritage. So it's really funny. Green, that Jonathan Green, that dude, they gonna eat him up. He's being ate up as we
Oh,
speak.
Mr. Bass, break it down for us.
The dude that came at Kanye and Kyrie, that same guy, the one that Brother RZA was talking about.
Oh yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, he's the head of the ADL. Yeah, it's gonna hit, like I said, it's all gonna hit the fan real hard in 2023. Real hard. Well, family, this last video. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was
I'm
saying,
here for the shit.
but yeah,
I'm here for the shit when it do happen for 'em.
You said what, Lillian?
I said I'm here for the shit when it do happen. I'm gonna be sitting in my chair with my beverage and my special snacks, and I'm watching and laughing and snickering. The shit that they give us. Now, don't be talking about why the black people. Nope, you kept comparing us to Holocaust, which ain't a comparison. So that's where we at.
All right,
So every time they try to talk about us, well, Holocaust, yep. Mm-hmm.
What my baby said, it's up in this stuff up top.
Up in this stuff, yep.
It's going down.
And it's not just a national thing, it's an international thing. The world is watching what's going on right now.
That part.
She said, is it true that Ye is missing? The last I did check on it, he did say that they had been trying to kill him. So I did see that, you all, but I don't know nothing about him being missing. So
still watching this shit, that's all.
Okay, so they said that they heard that he's missing. So let me do some research on it, you all. And more than likely, he may not be missing. He may just be, somewhere off the grid for a minute, because he did state that they were trying to kill him, y'all. Those people, they trying to take him out. So let me just do some research. Mr. Bass got a clip for you all, and we're gonna chime in and we're gonna discuss a little bit of it like throughout the show.
All right, Mr. Bass, got that beautiful bean footage.
But yeah, like I said, you all, the last I did hear where he was, he said that they were trying to kill him, and he said that kids, she did say he was like, they said something about him going to Africa. But you all know the last somebody went to Africa, he came back not even being him and not even being right. And that was that boy Dave Chappelle. So
MK Ultra.
All right. So we're gonna go ahead on and let Mr. Bass run with the clip, you all. This is about an hour and some. They did so Vita said did they show him in Africa? I'm not sure, you all. Like I said, I'm going to go ahead on and let Mr. Bass run this clip. And so I'm about to dig in real quick, and I have y'all some answers when I come back. Thank you, Mr. Bass. Thank you, Lillian. Hold on, y'all.
Was the night before Christmas, when all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled, all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads.
This might be a familiar poem to you, especially during Christmas time. I'm going to show you guys who wrote that and his ethnicity. Did you know it was a German Palatine that wrote that? Yo, dodged the hijack big time. Oh, yeah. Hey, how you guys doing today? Thanks for tuning in once again. I don't really know where to start with this, so I'm just going to do it. When it comes to talking about Santa Claus and Christmas, right? It can get pretty deep. You may go over several hours of research and information. I'll do my best to keep it very brief and understandable. And I'll try to stick to the point of my video, which is like the origin of Santa Claus to us, contemporary Santa Claus in America, and the United States, and around the world. Not necessarily everything in Christmas, but we will go over a little bit of that history as well. Again, we're just going to approach this in a historical way. And I want to introduce you to a person who had a major role and a lot of influence in making Santa Claus and the holiday festivities the way it's celebrated today in America and around the world mostly. So you can see who he was and his ancestry and genealogy. That's eventually what I actually want to show. That's how I started this research, really. But because Santa Claus is a part of Christmas, we will talk about his connection historically to that. We're going to quickly read some articles from websites before we get to some books. I know a lot of you guys know a lot of the history behind Christmas, the occult part, the pagan stuff, about Saint Nick and all that, Sinterklaas, Father Christmas, Swarty Pete, things like that. We're going to talk about all this stuff. So you guys might enjoy this video. You might go over some information you never heard of. But when it comes to the people involved in creating modern day Christmas and Santa Claus, actually, you may not know who these people were, what their ethnicity, genealogy is. And we all assumed it was a specific type of people we called the so-called white man. So over here, we're at the History Channel website. It says here, Merry Christmas, huh? Santa Claus, right? Santa Claus, otherwise known as Saint Nicholas or Kris Kringle, has a long history steeped in Christmas traditions. Today, he is thought of mainly as a jolly man in red who brings toys to good girls and boys on Christmas Eve. But his story stretches all the way back to the 3rd century, when Saint Nicholas walked the earth and became the patron saint of children, right? So again, we're going to see this recurring theme about Sinterklaas or Santa Claus being associated to the original story of Saint Nicholas, a person from 200 AD. So again, we're going to go over a lot of information. So let's just go step by step here. It says the legend of Santa Claus can be traced back hundreds of years to a monk named Saint Nicholas. It is believed that Nicholas was born sometime around 8280 in Patara, near Mera, in modern-day Turkey. Much admired for his piety and kindness, Saint Nicholas became the subject of many legends. It is said that he gave away all his inherited wealth and traveled the countryside, helping the poor and sick. All right, so one of the stories about Saint Nick that we'll read is that he was from a wealthy family, and when his parents died, he inherited it all, and he just started giving it to the poor and sick, as it says here. One of the best known Saint Nicholas stories is the time he saved 3 poor sisters from being sold into slavery or prostitution by their father by providing them with a dowry so that they could be married. You hear that? So yes, one of the actual first legends of Saint Nicholas was that he helped these virgin girls so they wouldn't be sold into prostitution. Over the course of many years, Nicholas' popularity spread and he became known as a protector of children and sailors. Remember who's the sailors or the merchants? Okay. His feast day is celebrated on the anniversary of his death, December 6th. This was traditionally considered a lucky day to make large purchases or to get married. By the Renaissance, St. Nicholas was the most popular saint in Europe. Even after the Protestant Reformation, when the veneration of saints began to be discouraged, St. Nicholas maintained a positive reputation, especially in Holland, all right? Especially where the so-called Dutch were. New Jerusalem, the Sephardic Jews and Moors had gone there. Who's over there? Sinterklaas comes to New York. St. Nicholas made his first inroads into American popular culture towards the end of the 18th century, in December 1773 and again in 1774. A New York newspaper reported that groups of Dutch families, all right, so-called Dutch families, had gathered to honor the anniversary of his death. Remember who are these so-called Dutch people during this time? Go back to my Dutch Sephardic Jews, merchants, the first settlers of New York. Remember who these people are. A lot of them are crypto Jews, crypto Muslims, people that were being persecuted by Catholics were coming over here, right? So-called Protestants. The name Santa Claus evolved from Nick's Dutch nickname, Sinterklaas, a shortened form of Saint Nicholas, Dutch for Saint Nicholas. In 1804, John Pinter, a member of the New York Historical Society, all right? We're going to talk a lot about John Pinter today, guys. I'm going to show you who John Pinter was. So he was the actual founder, not just a member. He was the actual founder, we're going to read, of the New York Historical Society. He distributed woodcuts of St. Nicholas at the society's annual meeting. The background of the engravings contain now familiar Santa images, including stockings filled with toys and fruit hung over a fireplace. In 1809, Washington Irving helped to popularize the Sinterklaas story when he referred to St. Nicholas as the patron saint of New York in his book, The History of New York. As his prominence grew, Sinterklaas was described as everything from a rascal with a blue three-cornered hat, red waistcoat, and yellow stockings to a man wearing a broad-brimmed hat and a huge pair of Flemish trunk hose. All right, we're going to get into all this. This was just one website. Again, we're going to continue reading. Just bear with me. It says here, the Christmas conspiracy, or how New Yorkers created Santa Claus. New Yorkers, ediblemanhattan.com. And, you guys got to understand why it became popular in New York. Who are these so-called Dutch? What is their culture? What did they bring with them? What were they practicing? What were they following for many years? Their ceremonies and holiday festivities or winter festivities. Everybody knows that Santa Claus arrives on Christmas Eve in a sleigh pulled by reindeer. But the earliest American account of Santa Claus has him arriving on a horse and wagon on December 6th, the feast day for St. Nicholas. The original St. Nicholas was a 4th century Greek bishop in Myra, Asia Minor, who was known for his generosity. He was revered in Europe since the Middle Ages, and his feast day was, and still is, celebrated in many European countries. The Dutch invented a mythical figure. Listen to this, called Sinterklaas, who gave gifts on the evening of December 5th, the night before St. Nicholas' feast day. Despite the Dutch founding of what is today New York, no evidence has surfaced that anyone celebrated or even mentioned St. Nicholas Day until 150 years after the city's founding. It appeared in New York Gazetteer, owned by one James Rivington, an Englishman who immigrated to New York in 1760. In December 23rd, 1773, all right, look at the year, issue, Rivington covered the first New York account of the Boston Tea Party. Remember
Yeah,
who did
Mr.
that?
Bass, slow
St.
it down a
Tammany
little
Group,
bit.
Secret Society, the Sons of Liberty. Remember who did that? And it has something to do with who we're going to be talking about today, John Pintard. So it's interesting that he was covering the first New York account of the Boston Tea Party, and a small announcement stated, last Monday, the anniversary of St. Nicholas, otherwise called St. Claus, was celebrated at Protestant Hall at Mr. Waldron's, where a great number of the sons of that ancient saint celebrated the day with great joy and festivity. All right, who's the Protestants? St. Nicholas and Santa Claus disappeared from New York written accounts for 2 decades. New Yorker John Pintard, here we go again, a civic-minded businessman and a descendant of a French Huguenot family who arrived in New York in 1690, mentioned St. Nicholas in his private papers in 1793. And again, 4 years later, Pintard helped found the New York Historical Society in 1804. And he was friends with a writer named Washington Irving. All right, you see the connections and why Irving was talking about Santa Claus. And an Episcopalian minister of Walloon ancestry named Clement Clark Moore. His dad, Benjamin Moore, right? Hebrew name, Benjamin. In January 1808, Manhattanite Washington Irving wrote in his literary magazine, Salamagundi, that the noted St. Nicholas, vulgarly called Santa Claus, of all the saints in the calendar, the most venerated by true Hollanders and their unsophisticated descendants. This may have given him an idea to expand on this story, and he did so in his satirical History of New York, which was published on St. Nicholas Day, December 6, 1809. In the book, Irving proclaimed that St. Nicholas was New Amsterdam's patron saint, and that a jolly old Dutchman, nicknamed Santa Claus, who parked his wagon on rooftops and slid down chimneys with gifts for sleeping children on his feast day. John Pintard jumped on the St. Nicholas bandwagon. At his urging, the New York Historical Society hosted a dinner on St. Nicholas Day in 1810. Pintard paid for the publication of a broadside with an illustration of a stern St. Nicholas. Over their fireplace hung 2 stockings, one filled with goodies, perhaps toys, oranges, sugar plums, and Oli cooks. The other, a stick. Neither Pintard nor Irving associated Santa Claus or St. Nick with Christmas, okay? Christmas had been celebrated in the city since colonial times, but it was a time to fire guns into the air and drink, or be merry, okay? Let's be merry, let's get drunk, merry. Drunkenness and rowdyism prevailed on the streets. Pintard believed that Christmas should be a family-oriented winter holiday for polite society. You understand what's going on? So we're going to talk about this. Before Santa Claus and what we think of Christmas today, there was already, going back to Roman times, winter festivities. A lot of pagan holidays, feast ceremonies were taking place in this time in Europe, and most of the time was about being merry, merry feasting, enjoying yourself, merry or getting drunk. It had nothing to do with Christianity or so-called Jesus or Saint Nicholas, as it's telling us right here. So the Huguenot Pinter, right? Pinter the Huguenot, aka Moore. I'm going to show you why I'm saying that. Who are the Huguenots? He wanted this to be a family-oriented winter holiday for polite society. So did Irving, who in his sketchbook 1819 popularized the idea that Christmas was to be celebrated with a cozy family celebration, complete with a large dinner. This is where Clement Clarke Moore, Moore, a New York Episcopalian minister, came in. In 1823, he published an account of a visit from St. Nicholas, 1823, commonly known as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." He intentionally shifted the arrival of Santa Claus from the evening before St. Nicholas Day, which few New Yorkers celebrated, to Christmas Eve in hopes of creating a family holiday. Of course, as everyone knows, 8 tiny reindeer pulled Santa in a sleigh, and Santa gave appropriate presents to children and adults. The poem has remained one of America's most popular poems for almost 2 centuries. Still, there was a problem with Santa that needed to be cleaned up. Pinter's image of Santa Claus was dour and depressing. It really wasn't kid-friendly. It was the illustrator Thomas Nast. We're going to go over his images as well. And Thomas Nast were creating these images, right? Advertisement, these propaganda of Santa Claus. And that's the image we see of him today. Thomas Nast was a German immigrant, all right? We're going to read he was a Palatine. He was a Palatine. Remember what Benjamin Franklin said about the German Palatines. We're going to go over that in case we don't remember. So the Germans were also bringing their winter feast, Father of Christmas, Father Winter, old time celebrations and feasts and pagan holidays and ceremonies, whatever you want to call it, with them as well to America. This was all combining. These people were all meeting each other. They're like, yeah, and they created this whole Santa Claus, right, out of Saint Nick. They combined all that stuff. We're going to keep reading. He was a German immigrant who arrived in New York in 1850, who created the modern image of jolly old Saint Nick, which first appeared in Harper's Weekly in 1862. We're going to see that. By this time, many Americans celebrated a less rowdy Christmas, complete with presents for the children and a family dinner. It was the New Yorker's view of Christmas, complete with Santa Claus, reindeer, stockings, and presents, that dominated American celebration after it was declared a federal holiday in 1870. Retail stores picked up Santa Claus as an appropriate salesperson, and by the early 20th century, Santa Claus was a popular fixture, enshrined in American commercial life through purchasing and giving gifts. Today, Americans owe everything to 3 New York friends, John Pinter, Washington Irving, and Clement Moore, who conspired to domesticate Christmas from a day of drunkenness to a family celebration, NewYorkPublicLibrary.org. This is the website. It says here, Santa's New York Roots by Megan Margino, Milestone Division of United States History, Local History and Genealogy, Stephen A. Schwarzman Building. And here goes some images. It says here, Santa's Catch, the Charlie to Bloomingdale's image, all right? So this is what they're talking about the advertising. Santa Claus became a good salesperson. Look at that. He became a great salesperson. Now, remember, they were telling us in the History Channel website that this was all based on Saint Nicholas, right? Santa Claus, Saint Nick. So we're going to dodge the hijack. So again, Thomas Nast, one of the ones who brought the image that we know of Santa Claus to us. You know, he was the one, right? These are some of his drawings of Santa Claus. These are some of the oldest depictions of Santa Claus in America. Right? But we're going to dodge the hijack big time when we're talking about Saint Nick, especially. But when we're talking about Saint Nick, you know, this is what we're talking about right here. Saint Nicholas, all the old depictions of Saint Nicholas are a so-called black man. And it's not just him. Many of the saints, many of the so-called early Christians are depicted like this. These are all Saint Nicholas right here. All right, these are all Saint Nicholas right here, statues of him. It says here depictions of black Saint Nicholas. You can't ignore the original images of Saint Nicholas and say we're blackwashing, because that's what is a fact. That's how he was depicted originally. This is Byzantine art. This is Saint Nick right here. Here we got Saint Nick again, Russian icon of Saint Nicholas. Saint No Play Play. It says here Saint Nicholas, the Wonder Worker, the Hochhetria of Smolensk. Saint Nick, attribution of the icon, Nicholas the Wonder Worker. Saint Nick. All right, this is Saint Nick right here as well. It says here the icon of Saint Nicholas of Saraisk, with 14 scenes of his life from Assumption Cathedral of the Ryazan Kremlin. 14th century Ryazan Historical and Architectural Museum preserves. This is from the 1300s. Okay? Saint Nicholas, right here. The generous guy who gave all his inheritance away, supposedly. The saint, right? Saint Nicholas, Sinterklaas, we're going to see Sinterklaas became depicted as a so-called white man, and in Dutch tradition, he was going around with a so-called Moor, or Zwarte Piet, and many other companions we're going to see. But this is Saint Nick too. He was also a so-called black man. Dodge the hijacks, okay? The icons of Saint Nicholas, the Wonder Worker, all depict him, the original ones, as a dark-skinned man. So back to the New York Public Library website, right? Santa's New York roots. Let's not forget the roots, though, of Saint Nick. Today, there's no question about the identity of the jolly red-suited, white-bearded, toy-carrying, plump old man. It's Santa Claus, of course. Throughout the mid-19th century, however, the identity of this famous gift giver was only just developing, okay? Just developing, huh? Saint Nicholas, Belschnickel, Father Christmas, and the Wild Man. While all of these cultural figures are symbolic of the holiday season, none are quite the jovial character we know and love today. So how was the iconic image of Santa born, all right? So they're talking about, all right, we already went over St. Nicholas, right? Who's Belschnickel? Belschnickel, also known as Belschnickel, Belschickel, or Pelznickel, right? That's another way, is a country fur blot Christmas gift bringer figure in the folklore of the Palatinate, right? The Germans. Remember who was Thomas Nast? He was a Palatine German, the same people Benjamin Franklin was complaining about. Just real quick, we're going to get into all this historical stuff now. Before we continue, we're going to come to this book real quick, History of the Conquest of Spain by the Arab Moors by Henry Copey. This is from 1892, so you guys can see. We're in archive.org. Again, that's History of the Conquest of Spain by the Arab Moors, with a sketch of the civilization which they achieved and imparted to Europe by Henry Copey, Volume 2, 1892. This part right here is especially for all the new people, right? What is a Huguenot? I got several videos on the Huguenots. I got a 5-hour one that is very thorough on the information and their history, what they went through, and their involvement in the Americas in colonial times. And who are these people? What is their ethnicity? What is their genealogy and ancestry historically? Now we're going to start here. Page 445 of this book is literally telling us about Columbus, how he's the Christ bearer. That's what his name means, the Christ bearer, and how he left out of a Moorish port. His vessels was fitted out in that little port of Palos, which had lately been a Moorish port. His sailors were, many of them, men with Moorish blood in their veins. Columbus himself, so-called Moorish blood, most likely Sephardic Jew from Portugal. We are investigating. There's many stories of his possible real name out there, so we're investigating, but definitely seems to be he was a Sephardic Jew from Portugal. So he also had Moorish blood. All right, so many of these so-called conquistadors were so-called Moors or so-called black people, right? It has been asserted that when the Moors were driven out, thousands took refuge in the south of France, who afterwards, abhorring the Roman Catholic persecutions, became Huguenots. They became the Huguenots. It didn't say they mixed with Huguenots. They are the ones who became known as the Huguenots in history. So whenever you see Huguenot, we just read John Pinter, right? John Pinter is a Huguenot. We're going to read more about that. Yes, he was a Moor. Yes, Huguenot, so-called black man. Yes, these people, German Palatines, Thomas Nast, right? He was also a so-called black man. I'm going to show you what Benjamin Franklin had to say about them. But it tells you right here in this book who the Huguenots are, right? They never tell you this part of their history or beginnings and origins. The word Huguenot just meant a confederation, a people coming together, comrades coming together as Confederates. We're going to hear from Benjamin Franklin himself. We're in this book that he actually wrote, Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, Peopling of Countries, by Benjamin Franklin. This was written in 1755, this version right here in Boston, okay, 1755. So basically he's going over some points, why it's bad, all this immigration, all these foreigners, as he's calling them, Germans, Protestants and all that, Palatines, why are they coming, these Huguenots, why are we bringing them into the country? He's literally complaining. So right here in point 23, he says, and since detachment of English from Britain sent to America will have their places at home, so soon supply and increase so largely here, why should the Palatine Boers, all right, the Palatine, Thomas Nast, right, the guy who was drawing Santa Claus, he's a Palatine Boer. He suffered to swarm into our settlements, and by herding together establish their languages and manners to exclusion of ours? Why should Pennsylvania, founded by English, become a colony of aliens, who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, Germanize, and will never adopt our language or customs any more than they can acquire our complexion? They're not even our, he's saying, they're not like me, they're dark complexion, which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. In 1750s, all right, very small. It's not me, it's Benjamin Franklin telling you. Nobody is black watching anything. They're telling you that before the 1800s, the world was a so-called blacker place, according to Benjamin Franklin's primary source and notes. Right here, he's telling you that all of Africa was black, or tawny, right? Tawny. All right, so tawny, shout out to Drop. All right, we're in Webster's Dictionary, 1828. It says here tawny, adjective of a yellowish dark color. Yellowish dark color, like things tanned, or persons who are sunburned, or as a tawny Moor, or Spaniard, the tawny sons of Numidia, the tawny lion, all right? Dark complexion person, right? So we got Africa is black or tawny, Asia chiefly tawny, so is Asia, America, exclusive of the newcomers wholly. So not part, but all of it is what? Tawny, 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 dark complexion. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. All right, as are the Germans also. Okay, we're gonna put swarthy right here, and we're gonna get swarthy being of a dark hue or a dusky complexion. Tawny, same thing. In warm climates, the complexion of men is universally swarthy or so-called black. So-called black. The Moors, Spaniards, and Italians are more swarthier than the French, Germans, and English. Okay, who are the Moors? The Spaniards and Italians. Who are the Spanish conquistadors? Who were the Spaniards that came here? Moors, people of dark complexion. All right. Their swarthy hosts were dark in all our plains. Look at this, black, as the swarthy African. Swarthy means so-called black, okay? Benjamin Franklin is letting you know that the German Palatines were so-called black. The Huguenots were Moors. These are the same people. Same people. So again, when they're telling us Santa's New York roots, who are these men, these so-called Dutch and German Palatines? Once you have a better perspective of who they are, you see things a lot differently, right? You see things a lot differently. You can't just blame the so-called white man. It's not about complexion. So remember, they were telling us in this website here that, Belsnickel, all right, we went to Belsnickel. He's the Christmas gift bringer. This is before Santa Claus or St. Nicholas. They were already doing this in ancient Germany, the Palatinate region. All right, who is the Palatinates? Like Benjamin Franklin said, these were swarthy, so-called Negro people along the Rhine, the Saarland, and the Odenwald area of Baden-Württemberg. We've shown the family crest there. The figure is also preserved in Pennsylvania Dutch communities, all right, so-called Dutch and Brazilian German communities. Belsnickel is related to other companions of St. Nicholas in the folklore of German-speaking Europe. He may have been based on an older German myth of Neck Ruprecht, okay? It's a companion, look into this, of St. Nicholas, as described in the folklore of Germany. He is the most popular gift-bringing character in Germany after St. Nicholas, Christkind, and Der Weihnachtsmann, but is virtually unknown outside the country, all right? Here he looks cool, but remember, this is also where you get Krampus and Swarty Pete, and a lot of the time, yeah, it's all good if the kids were behaved and good kids, but when they were naughty kids or bad kids, they would see a sinister companion like Krampus, the devil, and even this character would be more sinister, and they would kidnap them and take them with them back to Spain. Literally, that's the story. Back to Spain with the Moors. So, but Neck Ruprecht, all right, a servant of Saint Nicholas and a character from northern Germany. Unlike those figures, Belsnickel does not accompany Saint Nicholas, but instead visits alone and combines both the threatening and the benign aspects, which in other traditions are divided between Saint Nicholas and the companion figure. All right, so that's Belsnickel. Then you got Father Christmas. We've mentioned this Father Christmas, right? Again, Father Christmas is the traditional English name for the personification of Christmas. All right, remember, has nothing to do with St. Nicholas. Although now known as a Christmas gift bringer and typically considered to be synonymous with Santa Claus, he was originally part of a much older and unrelated English folkloric tradition, unrelated to St. Nicholas, okay? The recognizably modern figure of the English Father Christmas developed in the late Victorian period, but Christmas had been personified for centuries before then. English personifications of Christmas were first recorded in the 15th century, with Father Christmas himself first appearing in the mid-17th century in the aftermath of the English Civil War. The Puritan-controlled English government had legislated to abolish Christmas, considering it papist, and had outlawed its traditional customs. Royalist political pamphleteers linking the old traditions with their cause adopted Old Father Christmas as the symbol of the good old days of feasting and good cheer, right? Being merry, getting drunk. Following the Restoration in 1660, Father Christmas profile declined. His character was maintained during the late 18th and 19th century by the Christmas folk plays, later known as mummers' plays, all right? That whole image of the wild man, right? This wild man that was a gift bringer and came around during the winter feast and these European pagan traditions. This had nothing to do with St. Nicholas. So now, the wild man becomes Saint Nicholas, right? The wild man, Father Christmas, they all become Saint Nick. They are literally merged, and then you get the Santa Claus. You see, the fur that he has around him comes from all this fur, the wild man that he used to have. They used to carry the tree. This is all pagan stuff. We already know Saint Nicholas was something else. All right, this is Saint Nick. Again, the wild man prevailed. You see, the mistletoe, all that comes from before Santa Claus or Saint Nick. That's from other things, you know. And as you guys can see here, he about to eat the swine, about to eat the pork. And it actually starts getting pretty dark, guys. If you actually start going into a lot of the origins of this, it does get pretty dark. This is Pierre Fortard. This is another version. So I want to show you guys. It says French for Father Whipper or Old Man Whipper is a character who accompanies St. Nicholas on his rounds during St. Nicholas Day, dispensing lumps of coal or beatings to naughty children while St. Nicholas gives gifts to the well-behaved. He is known mainly in the far north and eastern regions of France, in the south of Belgium and in French-speaking Switzerland. Although similar characters exist all over Europe, this whipping father was said to bring a whip with him to spank all the naughty children who misbehave, right? Whip, and look what he looks like. Because these are some of the occult pagan characters that they merged with St. Nicholas to create Santa Claus, you know, the whole tradition. I want to show you guys a video, all right, real quick. There's actually people talking about this a lot, and they want to emphasize on the pagan stuff, right? And bring it out and show you that, yeah, it goes back to pretty crazy stuff, some of this Christmas traditions.
Aber ich sage nur böse Leute. Für die braven Kinder kommt der Nikolaus, für die bösen Kinder kommt der Teufel. Das ist auch nur ein einfacher Brauch im Prinzip. Irgendwann betreten haben wir Nikolaus als Gutes und Böses dazustellen. Apparently, it brings your baby good luck if in the first year you can give them to the devil.
This black thing that they do, this is like to wish you good luck for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
And if someone is not painted, then this year is not going to be a good year.
Het is idee van heel oude traditie, die hele soort oorsprong heeft. Die Zwarte Piet is in een beetje die jaren ontwikkeld.
In de hele Sinterklaasgeschiedenis is er geen enkel bewijs dat Sint-Nicolaas een slaaf in dienst zet. Daar is het ineens een Noorse baas geworden. Ziet dat niet? Wir sagen nur böse Leute.
Pretty crazy stuff, huh, guys? Yeah, so they mentioned Swarty Pete, right? Swarty Pete. So Dr. Hijack again, because, you know, they show you St. Nicholas, so-called white, but we already saw the original St. Nicholas also a so-called black man. So it's not about a white man owning a slave. Because the clothes that the so-called Swarty Pete has on is actually royal clothes. Swarty Pete, also known in English by the translated name Black Pete, is a companion of St. Nicholas in the folklore of the Low Countries. The earliest known illustration of the character comes from an 1850 book by Amsterdam school teacher John Schenkman, all right, Amsterdam, Dutch, in which he was depicted as a black Moor from Spain, okay? Those portraying the traditional version of Swarty Pete usually put on a black face and colorful Renaissance attire in addition to curly wigs and bright red lipstick, huh? The character has been increasingly controversial since the early 2010s and increasingly prevalent at municipal holiday celebrations in the years that have followed. As of 2021, a revised version dubbed Sooty Pete has become more common than the traditional variant of public events in addition to television specials, right? So that's real. We're going to read more about him as we read other books. This here regarding the origins, right? Says the Dutch writer Arnold Janscheer has researched European traditions involving Sinterklaas and his assistants. He has published several books about the origin of these traditions and claims the origin of ones with black skin dated back to 1100 BC in Northern Europe, when pagan shamans put on animal skins and painted their faces black with soot to portray mythical creatures of the underworld. All right, that's the hijack. It's because they were so-called black. According to John, these rituals evolved differently across Europe and eventually led to the development of characters including Krampus, Schmutzli, Schneck Rupert, right, and Swarty Pete. So they literally, he had these crazy companions and, very scary for children. And if they were naughty, these people, these creatures, they would take them. Now they literally painted themselves black, like the second to the right, and with horns, right? That reminds me of something, when I see people that are Swarty, right, with horns on and fur. That reminds me almost of American Indians, right? Talk about blackface with fur on and horns, right? With fur on and horns. Could it be related? You know how they interpret Indians as savages and everything. They could be mocking, these European pagan celebrations could be mocking something they have known about or known about in ancient America. All right, you see, this is something the Indians did over here. Here's another one. I just want to show you that, that horns doesn't always necessarily mean evil, all right? Horns doesn't necessarily mean evil. But when it comes to Santa Claus's companions or Saint Nicholas' companions, a lot of those creatures are actually very evil, and some of them are even called the devil. But I want to show you something about horns real quick. I know this may be off subject. Just want you to know that it's not always an evil or pagan thing either. Just what people are wearing doesn't mean they're worshiping certain things. For example, if you guys don't know, the very first letter of the alphabet A comes from the Aleph, the very first letter of the Hebrew or Semitic languages. Aleph. This is the pictograph. The ancient way it was actually drawn was a bull. Yeah, the Aleph, the A is actually ox. Picture of an ox, meaning strong, power, leader, teach, yoke, thousand, teach, to associate with hands to learn, to teach. All right, the ox, that is the horns. The ancient letter Aleph started as a picture of an ox. You see, Proto-Canaanite. This is what we find. These first three right here is what we find all over the Americas. Inscriptions all over the Americas like this. All right, early Phoenician, what they call Phoenician in Hebrew right here, and Pool of Siloam inscription. Early Aramaic, actually this one too. All these are found here. And then you get, the Jiddisch added with it, the Dead Sea Scrolls, modern Hebrew. All right, but that became the A, the Latin form of A. That's where it comes from, the ox, the horns. So horns, all right, is not always an evil thing, especially when you see your ancestors wearing it. Sometimes they're just remembering something. All right, power, right? Leadership, to teach, strong. All right, so I hope you guys are following along so far. Just trying to keep it moving, a lot of information I'm trying to summarize. So we go back to the History Channel website. Again, I want to show you guys something that I found in here. They have a little gallery here, right, of Christmas stuff, right? Of course, this is Thomas Nast's drawing in Harper's Weekly. I have the original. This is Harper's Weekly right here from 1863, volume 7, a Journal of Civilization, right? And this is one of the very first depictions of Santa Claus in America, as you guys can see, all right? He got the star-spangled outfit on. Let me close up on him real quick. Do you see? That's Santa Claus. One thing I noticed, and some may say, well, that's the shadows and stuff, but the phenotype and everything, that looks like a so-called black man to me, even though his hands are looking light. They could have done that on purpose. And I know they might say that's the shadow. They might be trying to be subliminal here. Okay, I just want you guys to see that Santa Claus originally, I'm going to show you guys, Santa was actually being used to promote the Union. It says here in the Smithsonian Magazine, a Civil War cartoonist created the modern image of Santa Claus as Union propaganda. Thomas Nast, all right, the German Palatine, so-called black man, is a legendary for his political cartoons, all right? And here it is again. We just saw the original, as you guys can see. You could call it the face that launched 1,000 Christmas letters, appearing on January 3rd, 1863, in the illustrated magazine Harper's Weekly. Two images cemented the nation's obsession with a jolly old elf, the wild man. The first drawing shows Santa distributing presents in a Union Army camp. Lest any reader question Santa's allegiance in the Civil War, he wears a jacket patterned with stars and pants colored in stripes. In his hands, he holds a puppet toy with a rope around his neck. Its features like those of Confederate President Jefferson Davis, okay? All right, he's hanging Davis, the Confederate leader. So I just wanted to show you guys that. I'm back at the History Channel website. Again, the gallery that they have here. I want to show you an image they have here. This is, again, St. Nick over there. Another statue here. Now, this image right here was very, very interesting. I'm going to show you guys something, and I colorized it. Now, it says here, Santa also became an integral part of the Macy's Day Parade, which first began in New York City in 1924. All right, this is 1924, I guess. You guys see? Santa's right here in the top. I want to show you something about Santa. Do you guys see Santa? Santa's a so-called black man here, or he is being painted with blackface, Swarty, depicted as a so-called black man. Do you guys see that? I'm going to close up some more. All right. You guys can see there's a so-called black man right here between all these people. All right. Saw a couple people there in the crowd. It's a lot of people here, right? A lot of people here in this parade. 1924. You guys can see clearly distinguished people, and I'm gonna go up the float. All right. You see the women right here. Then we go up to Santa Claus. You guys see what I'm talking about? All right. Do you guys see that? He's dark skinned, so called black man. All right. Saint Nick, corresponding with what Saint Nick looked like. All right. Look at that. He's a swarthy man. So if this is a so called white man, why did he paint his face dark to portray Santa Claus as a so called black man? Remember, this is Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, 1924. I wasn't expecting to find something like this, guys. Look at it. Like, wow. I was just like, is that really what I'm seeing? These are colorized versions. They're not the best because they made all the dark stuff like purplish and blue, but I'm assuming so you guys can see. Clearly distinguish people's complexion, right? These are very light-skinned people, pale-skinned people. Then you go up to Santa Claus. He's a swarthy man. All right, you got to be careful with this purplish because we saw the black and white picture. He was dark. There's a huge difference between like this lady and Santa Claus when it comes to their hue or complexion. You guys see the difference, all right? Even with the purple tint that the colorization did on Santa Claus' face, you can still see he's a dark complexion person, even possibly a Negro man that was actually portraying Santa Claus in Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, 1924. So again, I thought that was very interesting, what they're showing you here. All right, you guys can see it. I'm not making this up. You guys see. Yeah, they drew them like this, right? All right, guys, we're going to get into some books now. Just want to read something here. This book is called Christmas, A Candid History by Bruce David Forbes. I'm going to go to chapter 1 of this book. It's called First, There Was Winter. It says here, surviving winter. To understand what Christmas has become, first we should consider winter. For the moment, set aside everything you have heard about the baby Jesus in a manger and shepherds and wise men, and think instead about winter. Of course, the characteristics of winter vary with location because depending upon where you live, winter is more dramatic reality for some people than for others. I assume that most readers of this book are North American, and thus I will emphasize the Northern Hemisphere. But an emphasis on the Northern Hemisphere also reflects the early and medieval history of Christianity. The Christian church was born in the Mediterranean region, but within a few centuries, its shift from its beginnings. It began to spread to Europe, and the further north you move, it is dark. The further north you move, the rain turns to sleet and snow, and the temperatures drop low enough to discourage much of the outdoor work and play that human beings enjoy the rest of the year. And the days are shorter, with so many more hours of darkness. Continuing a bit further ahead, says, even before studying the history and anthropology of early cultures, we could guess what human beings might do to cope with these realities of winter. A great idea would be to organize a big blowout midwinter party. It would be perfect. People could have something to look forward to for the first half of the winter. The preparations could be a welcome distraction, and the party itself would be a blast. Then, once it was over, the remainder of winter would be that much shorter, until spring finally brought liberation from the cold and darkness. Now, he says all this is not just speculation. This kind of midwinter celebration is indeed what human beings did throughout Europe and many different cultures before Christianity, and we will look at two specific examples in a moment. Mulling over the common sense appeal of midwinter celebrations, as sketched out here, many persons today are surprised to realize that much of what they love about the Christmas season is not really Christmas at all. We love the lights, the evergreen decorations, the music and the food, the chance to get together with family and friends, and the special feeling of warmth that comes with the festivities. Yet all of these features have no necessary connection with a story of a baby Jesus in a manger. Jesus! Instead, they are the predictable characteristics of midwinter festivities, all right? A lot of these go back to pagan festivities. This is what it means when some people say that Christmas has pagan roots. In essence, pagan is a word that means non-Christian, or in this case, pre-Christian. So he goes on about the winter festivities. Right here, he has two examples. Shout out to Drop. He brought out a great video about Christmas, showing the Saturnalia part of Christmas, right? Saturn Day, Saturnalia Day, huh? Says here Saturnalia and Jewel. Two examples of the resulting winter festivals are the Saturnalia of ancient Rome and Jewel, or Jewel in Northern Europe. Both illustrate the common features that we speculated would be part of winter parties, and both influenced Christmas when Christianity spread into Europe. Saturnalia began in Rome at least 200 years before the lifetime of Jesus, right? So the day of Saturn, December 25th, this was celebrated in ancient Rome. This was a pagan day, a pagan holiday, apparently arising out of some kind of agricultural harvest festival. Theories vary about the origins of the Roman god Saturn, but by the era of Christianity, he was viewed as an agricultural god who, in an earlier golden age, had established a village on the Capitoline Hill, one of the 7 hills of Rome. Legend said that he had taught people how to till the soil and had presided over an era of prosperity, peace, and happiness. All right, this is just like Osiris, how to till the soil, and even the deity Dogon, which is Dagon, which is grain, which is corn, really. It's all the same story. Every December 17th, a sacrifice was offered to Saturn in the Roman Forum, right? Sacrifices. But what mattered most to the general public was the feasting and partying that followed, varying from 3 to 7 days, right? Being married to partying, getting drunk until December 23rd. Hence, Saturnalia is sometimes a singular term, referring to the overall celebration, or a plural term, referring to the several days. In other words, of the Oxford Classical Dictionary, the Saturnalia were the merriest festival of the year, the best of days, according to Oxford Classical Dictionary. I dodged the hijack. No one worked during this period, except those whose help was needed to provide food for the lavish feast. Friends visited each other from home to home and also joined in boisterous street processions. Houses, great halls, and streets were decorated with laurel, green trees, and shrubs, all right? This is ancient Rome. Listen to this. Illuminated by candles and lamps. Major bonfires were lit at high ground, where many citizens could see them. People exchanged small gifts, such as wax candles, wax fruit, and clay dolls. The 2 major themes of the idealized Saturnalian Golden Age were abundance and equality. In this era of joy and plenty, people lived together in harmony and shared equally in the earth's bounty. In real life, people of Rome were treated very differently, depending on whether they were part of the nobility or artisans or slaves. But in the few days of the annual Saturnalia celebration, everyone was to be treated equally. Lucian of Samosata, a Greek commentator on Roman culture and society, wrote a dialogue between Saturn, also called Kronos, and his priests, and the conversation included rules of the Saturnalia. During the celebration, Saturn proclaimed, "Let every man be treated equal, slave and freeman, poor and rich," and also directed that no one may be ill-tempered or cross or threaten anybody. When it came to banquets, the guidelines included, each man shall take the couch where he happens to be. Rank, family, or wealth shall have little influence on privileges, that is, on a man's place at table. All shall drink the same wine, and neither stomach trouble nor headache shall give the rich man an excuse for being the only one to drink the better quality. All shall have their meat on equal terms. The waiter shall not show favor to anyone. Neither are large portions to be placed before one and tiny ones before another, nor a ham for one of a pig's jaw for another. All must be treated equally, all right? Everybody can have some swine. When a rich man gives a banquet to his servants, his friends shall aid him in waiting on them. So we continue a little bit ahead. It says, as some descriptions have hinted already, the Saturnalia gained a reputation for wanton behavior, with excessive drinking, gambling, and other unrestrained activities. All right, they're not telling you everything here. It gets pretty bad. Again, in Lucian's dialogue, Saturn said that in his festive time, he could drink and be drunk. All right, be merry, just like we read earlier. Shout, play games and dice, appointing masters of the revels, feast the servants, sink stark naked, clap and shake, and sometimes even get pushed headfirst into cold water with my face smeared with soot. Clearly, he was describing the behavior of the crowds, not himself alone. If you look up Saturnalia in an English language dictionary today, one of the definitions will be something like an unrestrained, often licentious celebration, orgy. All right, you hear that? This is what's going on in Saturnalia, right? December 25th, ancient Rome, and sacrifices along with their drinking and being merry, associated with excess and extravagance. Thus, the Roman Saturnalia serves as the first example of winter festival that existed prior to Christianity, and it fits many of our general expectations: light from candles and fires, greenery, feasting, gifts, and social gatherings, all in mid-December. In addition, the Saturnalia included customs of social inversion that might not always be expected in winter festivals, but they set a precedent whose echoes arose later in European Christmas celebrations. A second example is Jule, or Jule, the Scandinavian equivalent in Northern Europe, all right? This is another one right here, very famous. Geographically, it involves the Teutonic people in what we now call Northern Germany, Scandinavia, all right, Germans again, and the British Isles. Now we got into the British Isles, right, and English people. Here, our information about pre-Christian practices is especially sketchy because in some regions, Christian missionaries were busy transcribing the native languages as best they could, thus introducing literacy. In those situations, all of the written records would be post-Christian and thus potentially influenced by Christianity. To describe cultural practices, before the introduction of Christianity, scholars have built theories on the basis of artifacts and surviving customs. And as I said before, guesswork. These days, people assume that Jule or Jule is simply another name for Christmas, and many dictionaries define the terms that way. the feast of the Nativity of Jesus Christ. So he's pointing out that has nothing to do with Jewel. However, the terms Jewel and Julep clearly existed in the region before Christianity arrived, associated with winter activities of some sort. Although scholars are not exactly sure what the words meant, one theory argues for wheel, referring to the cycle of the year, and another theory claims sacrifice or feast, referring to religious animal sacrifices and or winter banquets and celebrations. Only later did the words Yule or Jule become associated with Christmas, the important winter festival. Turning to Old Norse customs as an example of Northern European practices, we find Jule festivities in early winter, at the conclusion of the slaughter of livestock and the brewing of ale, with the feasting and drinking that would naturally follow. The celebrations were probably mixed with animal sacrifices and other religious observances to encourage fertility in the coming year. One piece of evidence comes from the writings of historian Snorri Sturluson, whose Heimskringla told the story of Norway's early kings. Based upon poetry that had been passed on through oral tradition, he wrote, "It was ancient custom that when sacrifice was made, all farmers were to come to the temple and bring along with them the food they needed while the feast lasted. At this feast, all were to take part in the drinking of ale. Also, all kinds of livestock were killed in connection with it. As additional evidence, the oldest Christian laws enacted in Norway included a ban on animal sacrifice, which suggests that animal sacrifice was a common Viking practice prior to Christianity. With a number of varying theories from scholars, what most researchers do agree upon is that ritual beer drinking featured prominently, all right, getting drunk, in the Vikings' festivities. When Snorri Sturluson quoted a poem about Harald Fairhair, the king who united Norway into a single realm, the two key words say that Harald intended to drink Jule, even when he was away from Norway. It is an interesting phrase. If someone said they were going to drink Christmas, we would assume that drinking was a key part of their celebration. And we can assume the same thing in the case of the Viking Jule. The drinking may even have had religious connections. Kathleen Stoker, an American scholar of Norwegian folklore and language, reports a belief that the celebrants who ritually passed the drinking horn from mouth to mouth saw an ecstatic connection with each other and with the gods. It is likely that the Viking Jule also involved ancestor worship, beliefs about the return of the dead, and ghost stories. To understand a possible connection, imagine yourself huddled in a cabin in the far north as a blizzard rages outside, accompanied by howling winds and strange sounds. It might seem as if creatures or spirits were riding across the sky. Folklore from many areas of Europe provided different stories that would explain the sounds in what became known as the Wild Hunt, Asgardrid, Asgard's Ride, Gabriel's Hounds, and other names. In Norway, it was the Gandrid, or Spirits Ride, in which spirits of those who had died in the preceding year, an army of the dead, roared through the night. In many cases in Northern Europe, the Wild Hunt was led by Odin, Wotan, in Germany, all right? And this basically goes back into Father Christmas and eventually St. Nicholas, okay? This is why I want to read this to you guys. This is another part of Christmas, you know, that a lot of people don't know. And again, it involves, as you're saying, this wild hunt, this famous wild hunt, which involves and led by Odin, or Wotan in Germany, that's what he was called. A somewhat frightened one-eyed god with white hair and a beard who rode a flying eight-legged horse. In the last century, scholars have argued that beliefs about the wild hunt were so similar throughout Northern Europe that they must have resulted not simply from frightening winter weather, but also from the spread of secret religious societies centered on the mythology of Odin. This attention to the spirits of the dead also made Jule a natural time for ghost stories, a common practice in the season of the year that was dominated by darkness and leisure. It makes me think of camping as a child, sitting around a fire at night and telling scary stories. Viking winter oral traditions contain just such tales. At a later time in England, even Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol is essentially a ghost story. Are you guys here? The influence. One further feature of the Jule observances was fire. Bonfires and candles not only brought light, but were also believed to keep evil spirits away, or to warm the spirits of the dead. Best known today in the Jule log, a practice that probably predated the introduction of Christianity. Families and communities selected huge logs that could burn in a fireplace for days, and charred remains of the previous year's log were used to ignite the new one. In addition, evergreen branches may have been hung on doorposts and around windows in the hope that their prickly needles would also ward off evil spirits. Okay, listen to this. So this was Jule or Jule E.O. James, a scholar of seasonal celebrations, summarized Jule this way. As winter began and cattle were slaughtered in Northern Europe, a great banquet was held on the fresh meat, accompanied with fire rites and the usual expression of autumnal rejoicings, coupled with the placation of the dead and the ancestral spirits. And yes, ritual drinking was included. As in the case of the Saturnalia, once again we notice predictable features of winter parties, including light, greenery, feasts, and social gatherings. When a birthday celebration for Jesus finally got started and then moved into Europe, it encountered and eventually mingled with already well-established traditions like the Saturnalia and Jewel. Keep all of this in mind as background to understand the development of Christmas. All right, we're going to keep reading. Hope you guys enjoying so far. We're going to belly flop to chapter 4 of this book. Again, we are reading Christmas, A Candid History by Bruce David Forbes from 2007. All right, so I just wanted to go over some information regarding Christmas. Again, I told you the main point of this is the origins of Santa Claus, right? And so we're going to continue with the video here in chapter 4, talking about the original saint here, as it says. Saint Nicholas probably was a real person, but we know very little else about him. Nevertheless, he has become the most beloved non-biblical saint in the history of Christianity, with endless stories and images clustered around him, stirring widespread popular devotion. As Saint Nicholas rolled through the centuries into Europe, to America, and elsewhere in the world, changing shape and characteristics along the way, he offers an ideal case study of the snowball process at work. The Catholic Encyclopedia begins its entry about Nicholas succinctly, summing up our minimal historical knowledge. Though he is one of the most popular saints in the Greek as well as the Latin Church, there is scarcely anything historically certain about him except that he was Bishop of Myra in the 4th century. Some of the main points in his legends are as follows. He was born in Patara, a city in Lycia, in Asia Minor. In his youth, he made a pilgrimage to Egypt and Palestine. Egypt, where's ancient Egypt, huh? To marry. Shortly after his return, he became Bishop of Myra, cast into prison during the persecution of Diocletian. He was released after the accession of Constantine and was present at the Council of Nicaea. You hear that? Where they created Christianity. In 1087, Italian merchants stole his body at Myra, bringing it to Bari in Italy. All right, so that was from Catholic Encyclopedia. Continuing, it says, notice that except for the general time period, the 4th century, and his location, Bishop of Myra, in what is now Turkey, the encyclopedia article describes all of the rest as a legend. The other information is consistent with the standard outline of Nicholas' life story, but history and legend have become so intertwined that it is virtually impossible now to tell which is which. For that reason, a papal decree in 1969 revised the Catholic liturgical calendar and demoted the feast days of 92 saints from universal to optional. And one of the affected saints was Nicholas. No disrespect for Nicholas was intended, for he has certainly become a dearly loved figure. It was simply that so little about him can be verified historically. A few voices have even wondered if Nicholas ever existed at all. But such substantial attention was given to Nicholas within a century or two of his lifetime. Bishops and popes adopting the name Nicholas, Roman emperors building significant churches in his name. It seems more plausible that all of this hoopla was based upon at least some minimal historical nuggets. What is particularly fascinating in the collection of tales that have swirled around Nicholas, the best known is about a poor widower who feared for the future of his 3 daughters because he could not provide dowries for them. The daughters would probably not find husbands and they would be sold into slavery or worse. All right, remember prostitution. Nicholas was the only child of prosperous parents and he was determined to distribute his wealth to those in need. Nicholas learned of the family plight, and one evening when everyone else was asleep, he dropped a bag of gold through a window of their home, allowing the widower's oldest daughter to marry. Other versions say that he dropped the bags down a chimney, which may reflect more recent influences. And yet another version, one of the bags just happened to land in a stocking that a daughter had washed and hung on a mantle to dry. When Nicholas delivered the 3rd bag, the father was waiting, eager to learn who his benefactor was. Nicholas swore the father to secrecy, saying that thanks should go to God alone. Over the years, images of Nicholas sometimes show him holding 3 gold bags in his hand, representing 3 bags of gold. And one tradition claims that the symbol of the 3 balls used to designate pawn shops comes from the Nicholas legend. As it says here, the miraculous tales go on and on, telling of incidents supposedly during Nicholas' life and also long after his death. For example, it is said that even as an infant, Nicholas demonstrated his holiness by refusing to breastfeed on Wednesdays and Fridays, because these were the traditional days of fasting. 700 or 800 years later, Crusaders claim to have been freed from prisons, restored to health, and blessed with visions when they prayed to St. Nicholas. Yet from the few examples, we already can discern emerging themes. Nicholas cared for children and young people, and he was generous, a gift giver. In addition, Nicholas watched over seafarers. Who's the seafarers? Remember, with several stories told about him that sound remarkably like activities previously attributed to Poseidon or Neptune, all right, adding their pagan stuff to him. Because seafarers were both travelers and merchants. Who's the merchants? So-called Dutch. Nicholas also became the patron saint of travelers in general, and merchants and bankers, and even pawnbrokers, all right? Who had all these professions? Did somebody say Sephardic Jews? And the journalist Tom Flynn has exclaimed that Nicholas became the patron saint of damn near everything. In their book on St. Nicholas, Joe Wheeler and Jim Rosenthal make a similar claim, noting that Nicholas becomes in all things to all people, as each age reinvents him. So it's going to get into his feast, December 6th, which we already read. It starts explaining his story, how it starts spreading throughout Europe. I'm not going to read all that. We're going to skip through all that. If you guys want to check all this reading out, make sure to get, the book yourself, read it. It's free online. Now, because we are talking about New York and the so-called Dutch, right here, this part says St. Nicholas observances and traditions varied from country to country with too many examples to summarize here, right? That's why we skipped over it. The Netherlands provides an especially notable case, right? So-called Dutch, because much of its patterns still continues today. By the 1300s, St. Nicholas already was well known in Dutch and Flemish culture. In 1516, the Netherlands fell under Spanish control. Some years after the Spanish had conquered southern Italy, including Bari, and after they had pushed Arab rulers out of Spanish territory. This was an expansive era for Spain, the general period when Columbus sailed to the Americas, and Spain valued the Netherlands as an important trading center. Spain also exerted considerable influence on Dutch Catholic Church, supplying most of the church administrators and bishops. In that context, Spain became part of Dutch lore surrounding Sinterklaas, Saint Nicholas, all right? The Spanish, who's the Spanish? And the Dutch, same people a lot of the time. Remember who is the Dutch that went up there? Where were these Sephardic and Moorish people coming from before they went to Amsterdam? According to legend, Sinterklaas spent most of the year in Spain, keeping track of the behavior of the Dutch children from afar and preparing for his annual visit to the Netherlands. With Arab influence remaining among the Spanish population, Sinterklaas had a Moorish assistant named Zwarte Piet, or Black Peter, an orphan who was pictured at times wearing a turban and a golden earring, all right? Slash the hijack. It's not always an orphan. Alternative explanations for his dark skin were that it was soot from sliding down chimneys, or that he was a representation of the devil, who St. Nicholas was able to conquer and force into his service. All right, so we can dodge the hijack because they even gave him the woolly hair. So does sliding down a chimney give you woolly hair too? And didn't they call American Indians the devils? So dodge the hijack, that's what I'm telling you. So either way, he's under the service of St. Nick, right? In annual observances over the years, Zwarte Piet was portrayed by a person in blackface. And today, some cultural commentators have criticized the legends and representations of Black Peter for racial stereotyping. Each year, 2 or 3 weeks before St. Nicholas Day, Sinterklaas and Zwarte Piet would arrive in Amsterdam by ship from Spain. Dressed as medieval bishop, Sinterklaas examined the children and sometimes the adults to see if they had behaved well. And he distributed token gifts to those who had. Black Peter provided playful comic relief and helped distribute gifts, but he also was the one assigned to deal with bad children, leaving a switch or, worse, carrying the misbehaving children away in his bag, all right? They'd be taken into slavery by the Moors, right? That's where the story's coming from. In the evening, Sinterklaas rode a white horse over the rooftops, leaving small gifts and wooden shoes children had placed on the step or by the fireplace. With modern adaptations, much of this pattern remains the same in the Netherlands today. Still, at the beginning of December, weeks prior to Christmas, this Dutch version of St. Nicholas observances is a striking example of the snowball picking up traditions over time, starting with St. Nicholas lore, adding remnants of the Arab presence in Spain, remnants of Spanish control of the Netherlands, a flying white horse perhaps derived from the Germanic Nordic Odin, and Dutch clogs to receive presents, all rolled together. St. Nicholas met resistance in Europe for the century of the Protestant Reformation. The 1500s, one of the basic principles of the Protestant reformers was the priesthood of all believers, declaring that each Christian had direct access to God, making mediators unnecessary. Thus, in order to pray to God or receive God's grace, Christians did not have to rely on priests or the Virgin Mary or saints. In the lands that became Protestant, which was most of the northern half of Europe, many leaders were willing to continue Christmas observances, but they opposed devotion to saints as an unworthy Catholic remnant. Of course, that included St. Nicholas. Some leaders wanted to totally eliminate any belief and practices about St. Nicholas, but others, especially in Germany, proposed a substitution. Instead of having St. Nicholas come to visit the children on the evening on December 5th, why not have the Christ child do the visiting and change the date to Christmas Eve? You hear this? In that way, everything associated with St. Nicholas Day would be wiped away. The focus would turn to the Christ child and Christmas, and any gift given to keep the children happy would be in a much more spiritual context. Judging by the results, it was a disastrous idea. Oh man, it was a disastrous idea to add baby Jesus. The first problem with a visit from the Christ child rather than St. Nicholas was that it moved the emphasis on gifts from early December directly to the eve and day of Christmas. And many people now complain that gift giving has overwhelmed the spiritual meaning of Christmas. We will return to that issue more than once. The second problem was that the Christ child, sometimes portrayed by a little girl in a white dress or never seen at all, generated little excitement from children and families. And soon the Christ child was making the rounds with St. Nicholas or a replacement figure. In German, the child was known as the Christkindl, which later mutated in English to Kris Kringle, right? That's where you get Kris Kringle. Has nothing to do with St. Nicholas. and in the United States eventually and ironically became yet another name for Santa Claus. The third problem was that the adult figures who emerged to replace St. Nicholas were often drawn from pre-Christian midwinter folklore that bothered some Protestants even more. In the words of one Christian commentator, turning away from St. Nicholas unleashed a host of semi-pagan pseudo-St. Nicholases. Instead of making the observance of Christmas more sacred, the reverse occurred. A bewildering array of characters emerged either as replacements for St. Nicholas, or as his assistants, or as threatening counterparts who frightened children. Stand-ins for Nicholas himself included Wishnashman, Christmas Man in Germany, Old Man Winter in Finland, and Father Christmas in England. Sinterklaas held on tenaciously in the Netherlands, deflecting all substitutes. Other sometimes frightening winter visitors carried over from pre-Christian times included the witch-like Belfana in Italy, and both Neck Ruprecht and Bersta in German lands. All right, we went over those earlier. So you get all those characters, right? And you roll them into one. And as it says here, here comes Santa Claus. Within a century of the Protestant Reformation and its turmoil, Europeans began to establish colonies on the eastern shores of North America. A glimmer of St. Nicholas' memory slipped across the waters along with the colonists, and the new setting would produce a mutation that overwhelmed all that came before. It was in the United States, particularly New York, that St. Nicholas became Santa Claus. Although the development of any tradition is the result of many influences, one way to describe the emergence of Santa Claus is to chart the cumulative additions and transformations by 6 notable contributors. All right, here we go. John Pinter, right, the Huguenot, right? Who are the Huguenots? Let's not forget. His boy, Washington Irving. Remember, he knew him, and he also knew Clement Clarke Moore, the guy who wrote the poem. It was the night before Christmas, all right? They're saying perhaps Henry Livingston, because he's trying to take the credit. There's a whole dispute about that. And Thomas Nast, remember, he's the German Palatine who started drawing Santa Claus. We get the first images of Santa Claus from him. Francis Church and Haddon Sundblom, all right? These are the people responsible. These are the contributors for the Santa Claus you see today. To return to the snowball image we have been using, these 6 persons each had a turn at pushing the snowball along, adding new features in the process. For background, remember the mixed attitudes toward Christmas and the American colonies discussed in the last chapter. While the Puritans and several other English-speaking denominations discouraged Christmas, other colonial Christians, such as the Dutch and the Germans, continued to celebrate it more fully. Thus, we might expect that early developments in American transformation of St. Nicholas would come from a region colonized by the Dutch or the Germans. And indeed, that is what happened. The first 5 persons in the list were from New York, begun as New Amsterdam, and even more, the first 3 were members of the very same organization, the New York Historical Society. All right, so they start out with John Pinter here, remember, the Huguenot. Now it says here, the first person to push the snowball was John Pinter, a merchant who was the merchant and philanthropist who lived most of his life in New York City and was involved in numerous civic projects. He was the founder of New York's first savings bank, founder of the American Bible Society, secretary of the American Academy of Fine Arts. Remember, this is a Huguenot. Who's the Huguenots? Moors. And secretary of the New York Chamber of Commerce. He agitated for a free public school system, was involved in the movement to build the Erie Canal, and worked to establish Washington's birthday, the 4th of July, and Columbus Day as national holidays. This is a Huguenot. In addition to all of these other activities, in November 1804, Pinter gathered 11 prominent New York leaders, including Mayor DeWitt Clinton, for a preliminary meeting to organize the New York Historical Society. And when the group elected officers in 1805, Pinter was its first secretary. Members of the New York Historical Society were not necessarily Dutch, but the early heritage of their city obviously was. And from the society's beginning, Pinter saw St. Nicholas as a symbol of those Dutch roots. I remember Pinter was French Huguenot, that's why they're saying this, but it's the same people who eventually became known as Dutch. At the Society's annual banquet in January 1809, Dr. David Hossack gave this toast: "To the memory of St. Nicholas, may the virtuous habits and simple manners of our Dutch ancestors be not lost in the luxuries and refinements of the present time." Under Pinter's leadership, the New York Historical Society began an annual St. Nicholas Day dinner on December 6, 1810, and for the occasion, Pinter commissioned a woodcut illustration of Nicholas, clothed in a bishop's robes. The St. Nicholas snowball began to roll. Washington Irving, interestingly, at the same 1809 banquet, Pinter's brother-in-law, none other than Washington Irving, listen to this, that's his brother-in-law, was nominated for membership in the New York Historical Society, and his influence regarding Nicholas would become more significant than Pinter's. In the words of historian Stephen Nissenbaum, if it was John Pinter who introduced the figure of St. Nicholas, it was Washington Irving who popularized it. Called the first internationally known American author, at least of fiction, Washington Irving is best known among most Americans for his stories Rip Van Winkle and The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Irving's publications were voluminous, and one that contributed to the Nicholas tradition was a satirical history of New York, intended as a parody of The Picture of New York by Samuel Latham Mitchell, a volume that Irving found pretentious. Irving wrote the epic under the pseudonym Diederik Knickerbocker when he was only 24, and the title itself, in its long version, should alert readers to its whimsical nature. The name Knickerbocker refers to knickers, short pants gathered at the knee, worn by the Dutch. Because of the fame of Irving's pseudonym, Knickerbocker became a nickname for residents of the city and the state of New York, which in turn led much later to the name for the professional basketball team, the New York Knicks. All right, you see where that comes from? Clement Moore, or Henry Livingston, the third step in the development of an American Santa Claus, came with the famous and incredibly influential poem popularly called The Night Before Christmas, first published anonymously in Detroit, New York Sentinel in 1823. The generally accepted author is Clement Clark Moore, who was yet another member of the New York Historical Society, a personal acquaintance of both Pinter and Irving, and part of New York's elite. His mother's family, the Clarks, owned a large country estate called Chelsea that Clement Moore inherited, covering the area still identified as the Chelsea District in Manhattan, north of Greenwich Village. It is difficult now to imagine Manhattan without unending skyscrapers, but in Moore's time, most settlements was in the southern part of the island, and the Chelsea estate was basically out in the country. Then again, we got Thomas Nast, another person. Three more key persons helped out the finishing touches on the modern Santa Claus. One was yet another New Yorker, Thomas Nast, who was born in Germany, remember Palatine, but immigrated with his family to America. And that's why Benjamin Franklin was complaining, all these German immigrants. Nast became a prominent cartoonist and illustrator, working as the head cartoonist at Harper's Weekly for 30 years. He invented both the Republican elephant and the Democratic donkey as political party emblems, and he had a role in developing the symbol of Uncle Sam. Even with those notable contributions, the drawings that established his greatest legacy were of Santa Claus. As drawn by Nast, Santa's jolly face, full beard, and white belt around his rotund waist established an image that endures to this day, bringing life to the character described in The Night Before Christmas. Santa's height would vary in Nast's illustrations, but he still tended to be short. The outfit that Nast gave Santa was a little different from our modern image, with a fur hat rather than a stocking cap, and clothes dressed all in fur from his head to his foot that looked like very itchy long underwear. Nast returned to the subject of Santa year after year in Harper's, and the content of his drawings added many other lasting features to the Santa mythology. A North Pole headquarters, Santa as a toy maker in his North Pole workshop, elves as Santa's assistants, Santa receiving letters from children, Santa's giant ledgers to record children's names, snacks left in homes on Christmas Eve for Santa. All right, that was all the creation of Thomas Nast. A picture's worth 1,000 words, they say. Through his illustrations, Nast substantially expanded the lore about Santa. So they go on to tell you that Francis Church, another big contributor, the New York Sun for something they did and published, the Times Magazine, they all these things, making it popular. Haddon Sundblom, he was another artist. He was actually the one, as it says here, his best known art was created for an additional client, Coca-Cola. The Coca-Cola company hired a number of prominent illustrators for its advertising, including Norman Rockwell and N.C. Wyeth, but Sundblom became the artist the company relied upon, most painting scenes portraying Coca-Cola in many settings, from beaches to soda fountains. From 1931 to 64, he produced at least one Coca-Cola Santa Claus painting every year. And between 1944 and 1953, there were 2 or 3 Santa paintings annually. This advertising initiative made sense. If an association of Coca-Cola with Santa Claus could boost winter seasonal sales, the company would be that much more successful. Also, building an association with a red and white Santa was ideal for a soft drink whose emblematic colors were, come to think of it, red and white. By 1940, the Coca-Cola company was, in its own words, the outstanding poster, billboard, advertiser in the country, ensuring massive exposure for the yearly Santa, who also appeared in a blizzard of magazine ads and other media. As it says here, he made a familiar image even more likable and widespread. The overwhelming ubiquity of these advertisements ensured that no rival version of Santa could emerge in the North American consciousness. All right, they made sure the wild man, all the evil stuff went away. So you guys kind of see the history of Santa Claus, how it was created. And when I first ran into the information that, John Pinter, these Huguenots and these German Palatines were the ones influencing, helping create modern day Santa, I just thought it was amazing. Like, wow, Huguenot, right? Oh, here we go again, another Huguenot. I have his family tree here, his genealogy. He's like 100% Huguenot. He comes from the Canon Huguenot family and the Legrand Huguenot family. The Pinters were Huguenots. You can't even find Pinter as a real last name, like history wise. It might go back to Pinto or La Pinta, Italian Spanish names. When I saw La Pinta, as it says here, I thought it was interesting that it says the surname La Pinta is the name for a person with a speckled or dark complexion, right? And you see the crescent moon here, La Pinta. Then you got Pinta, right? Pinta, Italian Spain. And again, it's the same family. You see the crest is the same. And again, the surname Pinta is named for a person with speckled or dark complexion, right? Pinta. So Pintard, right? Pinta. Remember that the Spanish Moors, Sephardic Jews, ended up in southern France, and they became known as Huguenots. So a lot of the family names were changed, right? Because I'm going to show you right now. Because when I look for Pintard, as you guys can see, it's oops, this name was not found. It doesn't exist. Huguenots. Huh? Who's the Huguenots? The Pintos. I could actually make a whole video about this genealogy right here. It's very interesting. I just wanted to emphasize the first person that came and brought the family name to the Americas was Antoine or Anthony Pintard. You're going to read a lot about that if you study John Pintard. As it says here in Wikipedia, he was a descendant of Antoine Pintard, a Huguenot from La Rochelle, France. Huh? A Huguenot dodged a hijack with the whitewashing. There's a lot of sources here about him, actually. As you guys can see, Huguenot, it's part of history. Just want to go into some historic books real quick. It says here, History of the City of New York, Its Origin, Rise, and Progress. This is from 1877, written by Martha J. Lamb. Page 506, it says here, John Pinter, the acknowledged founder of this time-honored institution at the time of the New York Historical Society, was an animated, cheerful, energetic man of 45, a New Yorker by birth, a Huguenot by descent, all right, a Huguenot, who was at a youth in Princeton College, had enjoyed the special friendship of Dr. Witherspoon and formed a wide circle of learned and distinguished friends, all right, he got connected. This right here is the book History of the Huguenot Emigration to America by Charles Washington Byrd from 1885. There's a part of the book here where it talks about the large migrations of the refugee Huguenots in the Antilles or Caribbean islands, such as St. Christopher, Guadeloupe, and Martinique. The Protestants of France found comparatively safe retreat during the 50 years preceding the revocation of the Edict of Nantes, all right? Who's in these islands? Huguenots. These are black folks. It was among these islands of the French West Indies that many of the Huguenot families that came at a later date to Massachusetts, New York, and South Carolina found homes before the revocation of the Edict of Nantes, all right? You guys understand the history that they never told you? We got black Europeans, black so-called French. These are Huguenots. A lot of these have Spanish and Portuguese ethnicity. They were fleeing and religious persecution. They were refugees. They were heading. A lot of them had a lot of skills. They were merchants. They were trying to make money and survive in the Caribbean and the islands. Again, these are black folks who eventually ended up in Massachusetts, New York, and South Carolina. A little bit ahead, it says larger numbers settled on the island of St. Christopher. Here, as early as the year 1670, were the Allairs, the Pintards, the Marians, the Lecontes, the Leomedillos, and many others whose names have become familiar to American ears or have suffered changes that make them difficult to recognize. Some of these families appear to have remained in the French islands for more than a single generation. Again, the Pintards landed where? In St. Christopher. And we can confirm down here on the list, Antoine Pintard right here. So Antoine Pintard, again, they was coming from the Caribbean. These Pintard who created Christmas, his family was coming from the Caribbean. These were Huguenots, Moorish Huguenots. And again, History of the Conquest of Spain by the Arab Moors by Henry Copey, 1892, already told us that it has been asserted that when the Moors were driven out, thousands took refuge in the south of France, who afterwards, abhorring the Roman Catholic persecutions, became Huguenots. So again, that's why I tell you to always dodge the hijack with their whitewashing paintings and their little cartoons that look like Beavis and Butthead drawings. I'm not kidding. Look at this, guys. This looks like Beavis and Butthead drawings to me. Like, they don't have no real features. These ain't real people. They all have the same hair. They all have that fro. They're supposed to be pale skin people, right? But they all have fro, frizzy hair, right? And they look like drawings. They don't have real features like when you see black folks being painted in these Renaissance, in these, European colonial times. They have real features, real people. So again, we got a French Huguenot, right? And what more, who helped in the creation of modern day Santa Claus. I just thought it was really amazing. I hope you guys found it interesting. The whole history behind, the creation of modern day Santa Claus. Again, I could have gone hours and do a whole video about Christmas and all its pagans, the different traditions that's being taken from before even Christianity or before even Santa Claus came around. But I think you guys got the main point about it and the general information that you guys can pursue. Again, this is a pretty good book if you want to read, the whole book. It's actually very thorough. Christmas, a Candid History. I didn't read this one, but this is another good one. The Battle for Christmas by Stephen Nissenbaum. This is also another great book by Ronald Hutton. It says the rise and fall of Merry England, the ritual year, 1400 to 1700. And it goes over the winter festivities and all the merry celebrations, right? Being very merry or drunk in these winter festivities. 3 good books for you guys. And this is another good one. It's called St. Nicholas, His Legend and His Role in the Christmas Celebration and Other Popular Customs by George H. McKnight. I read a lot of it, and again, it just gets into a lot of detail with the information we've gone over in this video. So yeah, they never tell us none of this stuff. They just want us to be doing ritualistic holidays and not explain them to us why. This is why I wanted to do this video. We know all this stuff is a combination, a lot of pagan stuff, and it has nothing to do with Christianity or the actual Bishop St. Nicholas. But I wanted you guys to have the background, the historical background. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm going to end it right there. Thanks for tuning in once again. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Wow.
Well, family, there is one of my reasons for not dealing with holidays. You see how they turned upside down the Christmas or the St. Nicholas story and made it into something just totally commercial, totally for greed.
I see why you don't do it. That I understand. Watching that was just like, wow.
Yeah.
They take shit to work for what they want to work for, and then throw it back when they done.
Exactly. Well, you know, I had typed in the chat a century, but it was 1,000 years prior to the birth of Yeshua. Yep. So, you know, it's crazy. The lie we've been taught and that we've been living.
Yeah.
Because of false information. You know, I really enjoy these historical type things that help bring you to the truth.
Yeah. Because we all want to know the truth.
That's right.
We've been told a lie for so long. Do you want to keep hearing the lie, or do you want to hear the truth? I want the truth.
I want the truth for real. Yes, indeed. There's many. They just say, dang.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, this has been a fantastic evening.
Yeah.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this evening.
Yeah. I'm to come back up and kick it with y'all again.
Oh yeah. Well, I surely appreciate it because you know I don't do a whole lot of talking, and boss lady needs somebody to go back and forth with.
I got you. I'm running up.
Bass player is a accompanying instrument until you turn us loose.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I guess boss lady is asleep, and I'm about to do the same.
Me too. I'm hurting. I'm ready to go to bed.
Family, it's been a fantastic night. Did you want to say something else?
No, just Happy New Year's to everyone. Happy blessed 2023 to everyone.
Yeah, Happy New Year's, everybody. And because it will be the new year when we see you all again. Yeah. And be expectant, like me, for a lot of truth to come forth and come out. It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. Well, thank you so much for joining us here at Truth Be Told. And Traylon, I don't see your thing in the chat that you normally put in there.
Oh, yeah, I'm about to put it in there. I'm on my laptop.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm about to drop it in there.
Yeah, I'll be looking forward to that. I'll be like, yeah, thank you so much.
Mr. Banks, I got you.
All right, fam. Y'all have a blessed evening. And
good night, everybody.
And Truth Be Told, family, we love you. We thank you so much. Peace and blessings to you.